Evening. This is our last meeting for this class, and Ellen and I were just talking about how wonderful has been to watch everyone's designs develop over the course of the class, and meet with all of you every week. So it's been a really wonderful class. Again, this is our first time running it this year, and it's just been a really fulfilling first outing for this class. So I appreciate everyone going on that adventure with us. And I was telling the class last night that we always appreciate feedback after our classes are done. So you should be getting a survey from us, if not this week, then next week, with requests to fill out your feedback on the course. And again, we always appreciate hearing from folks, but never more than after we've run a new class like this. Your thoughts about what you enjoyed and what we might do differently in the future are always really, really helpful. So please do keep an eye out for that survey. Like I said, you should see that either this week or next week. I also wanted to mention that access to this course is open for 6 months after the course ends. So you will have 6 months to go back and watch the recordings, review your assignments, and get in there and access those resources and materials. So if there's something that you want to make sure that you can go back and look at, you do have 6 months to do that. I did want to make sure to mention that. Any questions, comments before I turn it over to Ellen and we get started here? All right, very good. Well, Ellen, I think the floor is yours.
Oh, good. Thank you. Just to add to what Tim was saying about the class is I've created PDFs after every class and taken everybody's personal designs out. So it's just the slide deck. So if you want to go back and see photos, it's in there somewhere. And I'm not even exactly sure where it is, but there is a PDF of everything. So you can go back and refresh if you want to see like the elements of style or whatever. I haven't added up all the photos that I've put into this, but with we can calculate this, like with 5 lessons with about 100 photos, there's about 500 garden shots that you can access in those PDFs. So, if you're just sitting around with nothing to do on a rainy day, just go back through and something might go, oh yeah, that was the garden gate I really want to try. So, it's a great resource. Having it open for 6 months is really generous. So take advantage of that. The other thing I was just saying to Tim, there's something I want to ask you and I can't remember what it is. So I remembered it. We were thinking that possibly we could have a folder for your final designs, because right now you drop them into a folder that only I get to see, because then I make little comments and stuff. So if you wanted to, because I feel that we're getting a lot out of each other's designs. I know as I'm going through them, I'm going, wow, that's really cool. And as we discuss them and look at various options, it just might be cool to be able to have other ideas. So we're going to set up a folder for that somewhere along the lines. I'm not sure. And we also thought that we might do, one more like Zoom session in the fall as a follow-up. So we can kind of say, hey, did that really work for you? Or my God, that idea was so crazy. I'm not sure what I was thinking, or, whatever you want to do. So I thought that would be fun too. So I'm going to put that on the calendar, and I'll be in touch with Tim, and then we'll send something out to you with all these links and reminders. But yeah, this is so nice to see all of you. I had so much fun going through your designs. It's really been such a pleasure. I've had to go back and remind myself sometimes with some of your designs, which were early ones and which ones are the ones you're doing now. But it's really fun to see the elements. Like some of you are pulling from here and others are this. So it's really fun to see what's really kind of caught your eye. And that's very gratifying as a teacher. But I want to say that today we're going to be talking about rewilding. And rewilding is a term that you've probably be seeing a lot. A lot of garden symposium conferences are about rewilding. I bet they have a bunch at Longwood about native plants and rewilding. It's a term that came up maybe 10 years ago with Pete Odolph doing the what's it called, that High Line, and, you know, native plants and so on. And it's just building up and building up and getting more kind of exciting for gardeners. But when it comes to vegetable gardens, we're not really thinking of rewilding, because we're all we can do to keep the deer out and the chipmunks and the squirrels and the rabbits. So why do we want to rewild our vegetable garden? So I'm going to give you some reasons you may want to rewild your gardens, but not in the same way you're going to be doing like you know, a field or forest kind of thing. So that's kind of what we want to talk about, because really we focus this class on being neat and tidy and having everything organized, and this is where the garden shed is and this is where the compost pile is. But when we first started, I wanted you to think of your landscape as a whole, a big picture. And so we did the big picture, and then we did the small picture, and we've been coming down to the very small picture and the detail and what you're planting. But I want you to spin out again a little bit to the big picture. So that's what this class is going to be all about. We're obviously going to do more student work, and then we're going to do a bit on paper to soil. How do you take your design and put it aside? And I know some of you had some snow, and that, you know, that's your excuse for not getting outside and measure. I think you all did your measuring, but for going outside and actually putting that garden in, it actually might be a great time, if you do have snow, to be able to sort of put a little footprint around that area, and that, you know, just kind of stretch it out to just sort of see where this garden is going to go. And I'll just show you the methods that I use. And all right, so I've shown you about 500 photos, and most of them are all beautiful gardens. And I know one of you mentioned last week when I showed you that video that you know, you were really happy to see that my garden isn't perfect. And so I really searched in my files to find you some photos of like my not perfect garden. And of course, I'm not going to take pictures, you know, photos that aren't perfect, but I do have a few of how it looks a little bit wild. But I just want you to remember in general that your garden, my garden, none of our we need to mute. Thank you. None of our gardens need to be perfect. And I've been showing you perfect gardens, but just like throw that perfect idea out the door. You don't have to be perfect. You can make it, you know, however you want. But the most important thing is to make sure it's weeded. And that is one thing that I don't tolerate in my vegetable garden are weeds. I'm out there 2 weeks before I plant the garden, just simply on my hands and knees weeding. I'm there 2 weeks after everything has come out of the garden, just on my hands and knees weeding. And it's not fun. It's not, I mean, I put my, you know, music on in my ear pods and I just go. But it's just really important to make sure the garden stays, you keep it weeded. And that's, you know, going to require some garden tools. It's going to require a certain amount of time, but one weed plant produces 10,000 seeds. And so, you know, you let one go and you can get very easily behind the 8 ball there when it gets to the weed factor. So, so not perfect gardens, weeding, and I know the homework was a little confusing, and I just wanted to mention only because I guess this week I was kind of thinking I'd see more of your final designs in the final design folder, because you are so close and some of you have already done your final designs. But for some reason, I didn't put that in the homework, or it didn't, the message didn't get through. Most of what you did was looking at the garden shed and compost and measuring, which is perfect. You didn't have to do a finished design until next week. But we're not going to have another chance to look at those finished designs. So a little bit it was my fault, because we set this class up, I think, in the fall. So it wasn't really clear how it was going to work out. And then I changed it a little bit midstream. So you know, if you have a finished design and you're ready to go, just drop it in that final design and we can check that off. But some of you who had designs that looked finished, I put them in the slide deck tonight. Just looking at my notes here. Anyways, I just like what you've done, and it's really great. So anybody have any you want to say before I dig right in? Okay. Great. We'll just get started. But before I do, I need to go back and find where my class is. Sorry, everybody. God, this happened last time. Because I closed my my Google page. This is funny. Okay, I'll just go back into Google. I'll just go back into it again. Going back to you. Here we go. Let's try this. There we go. Okay, good. Phew. All right. So just a quick review. In class 1, we did the big picture, small picture. In class 2, we did elements of style. Class 3, we did all about seeds. Class 4 was tools and soil and compost. And today it's rewilding and final projects, and also do the paper to soil. But I'm going to just start right in with a few student work pieces, because last night's class, I left them all to the end and we ran out of time and I suddenly rushed everybody. So I want to make sure I cover everything today. So I'm going to do a few now and then a few at the end. And so I just sort of picked people arbitrarily as I looked at them on the website. So, you know, no special order here. Is Michelle with us?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Good. I can't remember how many I have here of your pictures.
Probably lots.
Well, I tried to just limit it to 3 for most people. But you were great about the picture. And now that I see your face, I know your garden now, because it's the backyard, that's the patio, and it's a new area for you, correct? And this is the front yard going into it, is that right?
So that's the future front yard. So that is the idea of what we want for the front yard. Yeah.
Oh.
But we don't have anything right now. It's just like that house outprint is all. So yeah, the front is going to be a courtyard with a lower wall. The wall's not going to be that high. But yeah, so then the back will be where the kitchen garden is.
Right.
And then that 4-square garden, and then a pergola. That jail looking thing is a pergola.
It's okay. So this is great. So this is sort of what we're looking at here. So you did a great job, Michelle, of going and looking at photos that would just inspire you and trigger you for what you wanted. Because then when you go to this picture here, like these are so cool. I can't wait to put in an arbor, both of these, like both of them are fantastic, the pergola and the arbor.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love the black arbor like that. That's a new thing for us. And then these pergola things, they're going to in all the beds. Actually, that's exactly like what our beds will be like. It's the stone, the pea gravel with the pavers, and then the high beds, and then those things that come around. So
Where do you
yeah.
get those? So you already have a source for those?
You know, I don't, but I do, I have a source to find where they are. So I'm not, but I can put it up there if, I just haven't gone to the thing to put down exactly where. I just know where to go and find them. So I
Okay.
will let you know from a person.
I know that Kinsman Company, for instance, has they have the moon gates and different things, but not as sturdy as that. Like I'm looking at those and they're really good, solid steel or whatever they're made of.
Yeah, that's what, I'm sure they cost a fortune, but you know, I do like that they're not real flimsy, because it's gonna have to be an archway so we can walk through like that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The black is great, isn't it? Having that deep, you know, maybe even like a dark green. We have here in Vermont, we have what's called an Essex green, and it's like black, but it has a little tint of green in it. So you
Oh,
might.
that sounds pretty. Essex green. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think it's a Benjamin Moore.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean that's yeah, that was my shed.
Yeah, no, so then this is the close-up. Oh, this is your shed picture. So I don't really have a close-up of your garden, except this is
No, that's what I was working on. I didn't realize it. I was going to put it in. I didn't realize it was to go in today. Sorry.
It's okay. No, that's what I'm saying. I think I should have been more clear, but There we are. It's great. You're going to do it. And I look forward to your finished, if you get to that point. I mean, you've done so much so far.
Oh,
This is-
yeah, no, I'm almost done. I just actually, the only part I needed to do was to put the plants, like I said before, I was waiting for those seed catalysts, but they're not here. So I'm going to have to go online and look up the names of all the things I want and put those in. But I already know what vegetables and what bins I want them to go in. And so it's just a matter of writing some of that information on the design. So it's
Yeah,
not
no.
too far. Yeah.
And this is your 5-year record book. Good for you.
Well, it's so funny. It was my birthday yesterday. So my friend gave me that and I was like, oh, that's perfect. Now I can,
Oh, nice.
I know. I thought
Really
that was,
nice. I know. I might even try again. I'm not much of a record book, but that looks like a nice one.
it does. I was looking through it and I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. I really am. Yeah.
Well, you're clearly very organized. And which reminds me, that's something I want to say to everybody is that we all come at this from different places. Some of you have taken classes from Longwood and you know how to do design, or you have it already in your skill set. Some of us are brand new at gardening and just doing our best, but all of you have done a fantastic job of immersing yourself in this project by doing your research, doing the best kind of drawing you can, and just don't worry about whether, nobody's making any judgments. You're doing great. And I'm just so impressed with the progress. So thank you, Michelle. Good job. Good job.
Thanks. I'll have that other one in soon. So I guess, I don't know. I guess we can't share it, but I'll have it in.
We'll have it on the website, a place to share. Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great. Yeah,
All right,
and
thanks.
I
Thank
you know
you.
what? I also still want to get on the website. Now that I know we have it for 6 months, I'm going to try and build that list of resources for everybody. Because many of you have great garden tools you've been recommending, if you have the source for this arch that some of us may want, things like that. So I'm going to see if we can ask Vanessa, I think, to get another layer on there to check. So good
Great.
job. Good. Rosemarie, are you with us? I have a feeling Rosemarie was the one who told me her husband was taking her out. So Rosemarie, I'll just say, if you're listening to this after the fact, you did a great job. It's so colorful and lovely. Great. And I love your list here on the side. I can't read anything, of course, but as long as you know what you're planting, good job. Great. So we'll just keep moving on. Kathy, I know you're probably here, right? Because Kathy was in our Tuesday night class and she switched to Wednesday night. And I was corresponding with her right before class. So I wonder if she was given the right Zoom link. I'm sorry, Kathy, if you don't have the right Zoom link to get on, but I will just sort of do a quick review. I like the way she's done her gardening tools. And this was her original design. And then look, she got really carried away. This is amazing. The way, I think these are her 2 different, I don't think these are side-by-side gardens, but I think she was trying them, the 3 different variations on how it would work. And then right before class, she sent me what she's working on for her final design, which I think is really lovely. I'm trying to think if it doesn't even look like any of these. It looks sort of like this one, I guess. So she's really been able to bring it together nicely, and look how there's a place to eat. And this is actually going in her daughter's backyard. So isn't her daughter lucky to have this in the backyard? So I love that the shed is right there and everything is put together. So Kathy, I look forward to seeing your final design. Diana, Dee Dee, are you here?
I am here.
I thought you were. Hi.
Hi.
I loved your work. I love your cat too. What a gorgeous.
Oh my God. His name is Mr. Potato.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what's in these beds? So these are the 3 beds. So just so everybody knows, I'm just going to go quickly. These are the 3 beds that you have that you are getting rid of in order to put 6 smaller ones in a more decorative way.
That's right.
And I just wanted to slide through all that. These are big beds. Wow.
They're 20 feet long. They're a little more than 20 feet long, and you can see they're buckling in the middle because the soil has settled and kind of pushed the bed apart, or the, you know, the wood apart.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's gonna take a lot of work, but my daughter and I are actually gonna take all the soil out first, and then we're gonna deconstruct the beds and remake them, and they're gonna be going, so now they're, you know, vertical, but they're gonna go horizontal against our neighbor's fence.
Uh-huh.
So they're gonna be in line with the neighbors. I mean, they're gonna be at least 3 feet away from the neighbor's fence, but
Uh-huh.
they're gonna go, you know, horizontal. So there'll be
And-
6 of them.
Yeah, that's nice. And you just sent a message in chat about how long, something about garden beds. Did you do that? You know, it depends what kind of material you're using. If you, this looks like nice wood, you're probably going to be able to reuse that again. The company that when I was showing the raised beds that I have that have like the little pegs in them, those are from the Farmstead. Just type in Farmstead raised beds and you'll get the website and see what those look like. And they're made with really thick cedar and they should last 20 years. They should last a long time.
Yeah, I can't remember what my husband used, but the wood is in really good shape.
Yeah, looks great.
Thank
And is this
you.
black plastic or something? So you didn't fill the
No,
hole?
so those were actually compost bins. They were big round bins that we put together.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know why we stopped using them, and we just put them over the top of the garden to, instead of a cover crop, I guess.
Oh, okay, to keep the weeds down.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a great little design and I love this squash tunnel that's going to be really fun, and your dining table and all of your plants. Now, I think in my comments to you, what I suggested, since these are the 2 gates and this is the compost
Yeah, I
pile.
added the third. I added the third. I don't know if you
Okay.
have my latest iteration.
I guess I didn't get it. I sort of shut up the shop around 4 or so, but yeah.
I put it in my final
Oh, good.
design.
Oh, good, good. Then I'll look at that. That's great. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
good. And I like the way you've used graph paper here too, because that really gives you a sense of what the measurements are. You don't have to go out there or put the measurements on there. You know, because you've measured it.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I measured everything, and I actually sourced a greenhouse and a garden shed, and
Wow.
decided I will definitely use pallets for my compost system.
Nice, nice. Does anybody else want to comment on this or say bravo, Dee Dee, good job?
Thank you. Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Thank
I
you.
was, I was the one with the question, like, is there, like, when you have that long of a bed, did that work for you, Dee Dee? Like having
So,
it long as a,
yeah, I mean, it did work for us. I mean,
okay,
in my final, you know, essay or writing, I wrote that this is the first, we moved from New York City after living there for almost 30 years. We'd never owned a home, let alone had a garden. And during the pandemic lockdown, my husband decided he wanted to grow vegetables. And he just, he made these huge beds, and there's not even 2 feet between each of them. So it's a bit awkward. It's not pretty, but we got such an amazing yield of vegetables. So it worked out great. It's just awkward. It's awkward to get between the beds. They're too close to our neighbor's fence. But yes, the long beds worked fine.
so does anyone recommend, like, I'm deciding whether to make them like 12 feet or 6 and 6.
You get coach.
Well, this was over 20. These are over 20 feet long.
That's huge.
And it's just too big. And as you can see, they're buckling. And
Okay, so maybe
so,
shorter, 10 and 10 or something.
I mean,
I-
my bed's 40 feet long. It's
oh
40
my gosh.
I mean, because it goes
wow.
the whole length of my garage, so it's a
Oh,
garage
wow.
by 4 feet. It works fine. Yeah, I mean, it's
And it's
really
a raised bed?
it's a raised bed. It's what I can reach. We have to
Okay.
raise it because we're in the city, or the rabbits will get into it. So
Okay.
And are they high? Like, what's the height?
So I think rabbits can jump like 40 inches, they can jump crazy, like 36 inches, something like that. So you have to put it like 42 or 44 inches above, which is actually perfect because it's about at my hip height almost. So for gardening purposes is like, I mean, it doesn't hurt my back yet, but as I get older, it will, and it does sometimes. So it works out really well that it's not
Wow.
knee height, it's like more hip height, so I can just kind of bend over. My smallest one needs a stool to get into it, but that's fine. The long and narrow is great.
Oh,
So how wide is it?
Yeah.
It's like it's just under 4 feet wide. So
Yeah,
I
so
can reach
they're,
all the way in, and then I have two window boxes. And I
oh
have
my gosh,
one in front of each
that's
window box.
amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
they're probably much,
That's
it's
high.
probably better built than mine.
I mean, it's Bluestone. We got it installed professionally, but it was like,
Oh, okay.
it was what I wanted to do the first year, and we're on year 8, but I've got it and it's beautiful. So it's a
Wow.
Wow, nice.
Bluestone raised, yeah, with a cap, so we can kind of sit on it, like during parties, people sit on it and stuff.
Right.
Good. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So Dee Dee, this is great. This continues the idea with the vision board, which
so
I think is
pretty.
wonderful. And so you've put everything in here, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I have most of those tools already.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a tip bag. I didn't even know what one was. I actually went to Margaret Roach. I had remembered she had a list of her essential garden tools.
Yep.
And I thought a tip bag seemed great, so I added that. And
Great.
I don't have tutors. Is that how you pronounce them? Tutors, the
Oh, tutors. Yeah.
tutors, yes. So I'm gonna have some of those where I have, you know, plants that need support or want to climb.
Uh-huh.
And I got your weeder. I'd never seen one of those before, but I decided I should have one.
Oh, good.
And the rest I have everything else.
Oh, good. One tool, this Hari Hari is what everybody keeps recommending.
Oh
I
my
don't,
God, I love that.
people say that. I don't
It's the
have one. I'm gonna
best.
get one of those this year.
Yeah, it's probably the thing I use more than anything else,
Interesting.
more than my trowel, for
Yeah.
sure. I kind of use it as a trowel.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna-
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm gonna keep moving on, but go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so this, can you see my cursor?
No.
Nope, here, I'll use the pen. So this, can you see what I'm drawing
I,
around? Right here in the upper left?
yes, yes.
So there is a greenhouse that looks just like this at Walmart. And it's
Huh.
8 by 10, and it's only $809, which I can't believe. And I was wondering, I'm asking you in the class if anyone has any opinion on getting a greenhouse sight unseen. That's steel, it's steel and glass.
Wow. You mean it comes in a box?
Yeah. So it's probably not real. Maybe it's plexiglass.
Yeah. My immediate thought, and then I want everybody else to chime in if they want to, is that unless you secure it to some kind of a foundation, it could just tip over or blow away. So I don't,
Right.
it just make sure that you have something in place to nail it, to bolt it into.
Right. So we'll probably have to just frame it out.
I have a greenhouse too, Dee Dee, and it's not that large. It's probably 8 by 10, I think.
That's what
Mine
this
is
is.
on a foundation, like a concrete foundation, and it even has, I believe it has like floor heat. It's not a heated greenhouse, but it has floor heat. So it's really a nice greenhouse, but I think putting it on some kind of a foundation is really important. And you'd also want to prevent, you know, you don't want animals to dig under, so that would be something to consider too. And what else was I gonna say? Oh, benches, like, I have waist-high benches in most of my greenhouse, which makes the work a lot easier.
Right.
So that would be, I don't think you have to have the whole thing with bench, a tabletop in there, but it, I like having some of that in my greenhouse as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I read there's like over 700 reviews and they're written, I think it's like 4.8 stars. I mean,
Wow.
you should always kind of be, I don't know, I guess a little dubious about reviews, but I don't know. I thought maybe I'll try it.
Yeah. So that sounds cool. And you can have dinner parties out there. Wouldn't that be fun at night?
Yeah, yeah. And this dining table, I just want to say one more thing.
Yeah, yeah.
See this? So our neighbor had a tree cut down and they have big stumps like this. So I'm gonna try to make that too.
Oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
Well, we'll put that in our resources thing. You'll have to let us know how it goes. The
I
wall
will.
greenhouse.
I will. Okay.
I love that
Thank you.
table. I love that rustic table too.
Me
That's great.
too. Me too. Thank you.
You know, I get a lot of bamboo, and this is reminding me of that at Home Depot. I don't really shop at Home Depot. I don't, promote big box stores or anything, but they have some pretty good deals on bamboo sometimes. Bamboo.
I know they do.
Well,
I'll probably have to get some stuff from Home Depot.
well, look at Longwood Gardens first. Maybe they have some, we have to promote Longwood Gardens.
I
because
know.
of
Okay.
the quality. So check their store first and then get what you can.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep moving, but great job, Dee Dee.
Thank you.
So great. I mean, you just blow me, you and your husband together. I mean, my gosh, the fact that you're new at this, but you're really making progress. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, it's our enthusiasm.
But the fact that your two heads are better than one, right? You're doing it,
Yes,
which is great.
exactly. Thank you.
So I'm going to jump right into the class right now, which is rewilding. Rewild is a verb. It means to return to a more natural or wild state, to increase biodiversity and restore the natural processes. And, I highly encourage you to be looking at books and reading about rewilding and how you might integrate it. And it really resonates with me because I really feel that our gardens are not just about ourselves and growing food. They really are a place to create habitat for healthy habitat for birds, for snakes, for frogs, for all those things that we like. Unfortunately for me, that also means groundhogs and other critters, but just being able to remember that we're all in this together and we're going to miss them if they're gone. So let's just keep building the diversity of our backyards and creating habitat for them and remembering to, nurture what is in the wild, because that's why we get outside. And so Isabella Tree and Charlie Burrell, you don't know this book, The Book of Wilding, it's become really the bestseller, so to speak, on rewilding right now. And they are from England. Isabella gives a lot of talks through the Garden Conservancy and other organizations. She might even be giving a talk through Longwood. I don't really know, but their book of wilding is all about their farm in England. And I've heard her speak, and so I'm only just going to give you sound bites from what I remember that she talked about. But they basically had been growing crops, grains, I think, and animals in corrals on their land. And it was just really hard every year to just kind of make a living at it, or that they noticed a degradation in the soil. And so they did some research, like what was it like back when wild buffaloes roamed and when all the big creatures that, grazed naturally, and what was growing during that time. And they thought, well, gee, if we took all of our fences down and we just let all of our pastures open up to be wild grazing instead of trying to manage it, let's just see what would happen. And of course, a huge resurgence of different kinds of grasses and natives and animals and wildlife and everything came forth because they weren't trying to manage it so tightly. And so that was the message that came across in her talk. And You know, but they're on a big scale, and they're in England, and that doesn't mean that it's that different from our climate. But there were a couple illustrations. I just did screenshots when I was watching her talk. So I'm sorry, Isabella, that I just took your pictures, but I just wanted to show what rewilding would look like in a backyard landscape. A lot of this looks very much like some of the designs that we've been working on, you know, a little bit of grass, a little bit of growing. Now, of course, there's not a vegetable garden here, so we have to use our imagination, but it has many of the same elements in that backyard. So when it starts to get more rewilded, there's less grass, there's more areas for wildflowers, there's a little pond there that's starting for the amphibians. It creates a wonderful habitat for children to run around. And when we take trees down, being able to leave the stumps creates an area for insects and birds to eat those insects. And so it's, you know, it's better to leave a stump than to take it all the way down and out. So this is the next step. It looks like she even has beehives here. And then if you take it to that next step beyond that, it really becomes wild. You can see the pond is now taking over more area and is connected to a stream and a wetland, and a tree that has come down is just left on its side as a log, and there's a duck house or an owl house here, and that table that was over here is moved more into this area here to be able to take advantage of the wildness going on around. And then, you know, the final picture is this, and I can't tell that much difference between those two, but I do think that most of us don't necessarily want this in our backyard, but to find some compromise between the two is really great. Notice the berries on the trees for the birds, and just what a wonderful healthy habitat that is for creatures great and small, and for people, and just, you know, what we really need in our suburbs, because so many of our neighbors are just really embracing grass and lawn and not doing anything to support wildlife. So why does rewilding matter? Well, rewilding is about letting nature take care of itself, and to shape the land, to repair damaged ecosystems, and to restore healthier landscapes. And, you know, we all know that's true. As a birder, and I'm sure all of you have bird feeders, it's just shocking to me how few birds I see compared to other years. This is also from Isabella's slides, and that she showed that at the Chelsea Flower Show, this rewilding garden won Best of Show in the Chelsea Flower Show in 2022. And, you know, what a far cry this is probably from the Best of Show from 10 years ago, when it was probably all very tightly planted perennials in certain orders in a very close planting plan. But to be able to create a garden that looks very much like those illustrations we were just seeing, with the little garden shed here, and then the stream, and the way to get into it with the little boardwalk so little critters can live underneath as well. You know, this is very cool that the Chelsea Flower Show and so many gardeners are really embracing this. So, you know, bring a little wild into your designs if you can. I just had to throw this in as well, because, you know, this is of course what would be really fun if so many apartment houses had these greeneries. It's a, you know, it's a little bit much perhaps, and I don't know if this was photoshopped or if this is real or not, but it really is wonderful to think that apartments and condominiums don't have to have so many restrictions on planting and greenery. So some of the concepts that I would like to just share with you in terms of how to rewild your own yard, and, you know, still keep a little area that's your kitchen garden, is to know your land. And we talked about this in the very first class, about knowing the big picture and the small picture. And Wendell Berry, who's a farmer in Kentucky, and a writer and a philosopher, and a great agricultural philosopher, he always talks about walking the land at the end of the day, just walking the perimeters of your land, and so you get to know where things are. And a lot of farmers do that naturally, that by, you know, checking the fences and to make sure there's no holes and gaps. But it's just a nice ritual if you like wine in the evening, to go out and walk all around the property, the perimeters of your land, and speak to your plants, and, you know, speak to whatever nature you can or cannot see that's out there, just to, you know, connect in that deep way. And then forget tidy and save seeds. Allow a few plants to grow full cycle and form seeds. It will give you a new perspective about maintenance. And, you know, I showed this picture of Chanticleer Gardens growing their lettuce seeds, and they're not growing them for seeds, but they're growing their sort of like as a shock value, because people don't recognize this as a lettuce because it's going to seed. So, you know, you don't need that many, of course, but just one or two, just let them go to seed, and let some other plants go to seed in your garden, so you actually can see what those plants look like when they go from a seed into another seed, because it's really quite a beautiful process to really observe how a plant forms a seed pod and then what's formed inside of that seed pod. And we all know peas. We can eat the peas, or you can leave the pods on the plant and just have enough seeds to plant them again next year. Save yourself $4.50 from a seed packet. And seeds are so beautiful. Consider saving seeds and wrapping your in on, you know, all kinds of websites. You can get plain old nice plain brown seed envelopes and fill them up with seeds and give them to your friends for Christmas or Valentine's Day or birthdays. There's nothing nicer than receiving some homegrown seeds. And we've talked about heirloom seeds. I think you understand the difference between open pollinated and hybrid. And open pollinated can be saved year after year, and hybrid seeds will produce sterile seeds not worth saving. And so noticing how the catalogs that you're shopping from list their seeds. If it's a hybrid, it will say an F1. If it's an heirloom or an open pollinated, which are really the same thing, except heirlooms are often seeds that are named after places or people that, you know, where those seeds originated. But open pollinated just means that you can grow that same seed year after year and still get the same plant. Avoiding plastic, and this is a big one for all of us as gardeners. You know, we think of gardening as such a green industry. Aren't we cool to be gardeners? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but, you know, we think we're doing the right thing. We're saving that trip to the grocery store, and we're not buying our salad greens in plastic containers and things, but we're using a lot of plastics when we buy plants. You know, think of all the proven winner plants that you put into a perennial garden, and then all those pots that get collected are not recyclable. They're like, I collected about 6 different kinds of pots one weekend when I put in somebody's garden, and they were all had different numbers on the bottom of them, and I think only 2 of them were recyclable. What I try and do is save pots so I can use them from year to year, but there's only so many pots that you can save. And so really the best thing is if you can sow directly in the ground, whether it's lettuce, whether it's even some of your flower seeds that you might buy at a nursery, see if you can grow them in your garden, and then you can always transplant them into your garden. And it's not always possible, but just trying to cut down on as much plastic as we can by not buying all of our plants. And I know many of you are going to start sowing your own seeds this year, which is really great. And, you know, I hope you're successful. And just be aware of when you are in the nursery. You know, I think the more you garden, the savvier you get in terms of noticing things. And one of the things that always makes me chuckle a little bit is when I see mesclun growing in 6-packs at the nursery, because it's already big enough to eat usually. And it's so easy just to start from seed directly in your garden. And same with things like arugula or dill. You don't have to buy those in 6-packs. They're very easy. But these are things that you'll learn over time for those of you who are new gardeners, what you can start and what you can buy and make it easier for yourself. So layering is really important concept for perennial gardens and for rewilding, and also in our vegetable gardens. Layering creates a multi-level ecosystem that supports the plants and creates combinations that allow plants to pollinators to thrive. And so this is the dill, and, you know, obviously the little bit of dill leaf has given way to these beautiful umbrels of dill, and they're sort of falling over, but for the most part they're going to open wide, and I'll just leave them in the garden, and the pollinators love the umbrels of the the dill family. And then meanwhile, the basil is catching up, and the lemon gem is catching up, and the nasturtium, and they're all on, you know, the lower level. So I can put a whole bunch of things all in the same garden, and everything will be thriving. Another example of the garden and the different layers with the chard, that rainbow chard, and how it gets quite tall, and the leaves are on the taller parts of the stalks. So that leaves a lot of room underneath to be able to grow basil and lemon gem and some of the other smaller plants and the nasturtiums that surround the edges of the garden. Another beautiful example of plants that are really packed together. And I find that by mid-August, I kind of just let things go and do their own thing. You know, in June, when I get May and June, I get things so that everybody has a good amount of space so they can really start to grow. And then pretty much by July, if I need to water, I'll notice that they're either thriving or not doing well, and I'll replace them. And then by August, I just kind of let things go. And this is a great example of plants just letting go. The bee balm with the red perilla in the border, and it looks kind of wild and crazy, but you know, it's the plants are happy. There's nobody who's losing out. They're all just enjoying each other's company, and they look so pretty together. I just love it when plants start weaving together. It gives me great pleasure. I know sometimes when I take people through my garden and the garden looks kind of like that, I can tell that people who aren't gardeners don't appreciate it as much as those who are gardeners, because you know that it takes a while. And actually, I think that's not bee balm. I think those are dahlias, now that I'm looking at it more closely. And of course, herbs, all kinds of culinary herbs can be grown nice and tight, and trying different basils, like this is the Siam Queen basil, but there's lots of different kinds you can grow. So in the last class, we talked about soil. Love your soil. It's not dirt, it's soil. And what feeds your soil ultimately feeds you. So keep it organic and have it tested if you have any concerns, or build it up with compost. And if you want to, cover crops. Cover crops are not necessarily that necessary in a home garden, but if you need to create better tilth and texture in your soil, it's a great way to do that. And, you know, just to show you good soil versus not so good soil, this all started from the same place, but the more you work it, and the more you work with it, and the more you love your soil and really pay attention to your soil, the better it will be, and the easier it will be for you to plant. So once you get to this point where your soil looks like this, which I call the chocolate cake texture, it just makes it that much easier to be able to put your seeds directly into the ground and have success. So working on creating good soil with compost, the slow compost, which can take 3 years, or the fast compost, which only takes 1 year. And sometimes you just need to break up those little clods and, you know, make a looser soil structure. So I want to talk a little bit about the ARC. And when I first started, I had a quote from Mary Reynolds, who wrote the book, The Gardener's Awakening. And she has another book called ARC, and she talks about how to give at least half of your garden or land back to nature, if not half, as much as you can manage, and to allow wild places to flourish. And you know, I know you're all on board with this one, and there's not much we can do about the fact that we've lost 90% of our crop diversity. But when we create wild places for wild creatures, it really helps preserve as much as we can. And I know in my neighborhood, I live in the village, and all my neighbors pretty much just have lawns. And when I first moved here, I took such pleasure, because I think all the little critters all over the place just came to my yard. I had this image of myself being like Snow White or whatever those fairy tales are. And I just, you know, embraced all the snakes and frogs and every critter that was just so happy to have me here. And, you know, I just feel that that's what we need to do, as most of our communities are just really being, you know, sucked dry of anything that's that's, you know, living. And so we are the ARC, Mary Reynolds, this is her new project, and I encourage you to go to her website. ARC is Acts of Restorative Kindness, weaving a patchwork of safe havens for nature globally in our gardens, in our schools. And when you go to her website, which I think is coming up, We Are the ARC, she has a list of 10 things you can do to create an arc. And one of those things, which I think is really brilliant, is she says, you know, a lot of your neighbors may not understand what you're doing by building an arc, by creating a natural habitat in a corner of your garden or half of your land. And so you can put a sign up that says, this is an arc garden, and then it will make people curious about what an arc is. And it may even encourage them to want to put in an arc system. So, you know, you've probably seen people who just let their gardens go naturally to dandelions, and they have to put a sign up that says this is a pollinator garden. And or no mow in May is one of the things that we have in Vermont. The same is true for an arc garden. I think it's just all about educating our neighbors and sharing the things that are important to us, and maybe hopefully at some point we can inspire other people to create an art garden. So I love this quote from Jane Goodall. This is from the back of Mary's book. Reynolds gives us a much needed reason for hope. The gardener, the conservationist, the city planner, and the nature lover will all be inspired for this wonderful book. It shows how thousands of even small wildlife-friendly gardens can provide habitat for embattled wildlife around the world. And somebody in one of my classes, it might have been this class, said that they had Mary does garden design. She comes to the States, and I know she's here now, to actually come to her yard and do. If one of you is in the class and you were the one who mentioned that, I'd love to have you remind me. But look at that wonderful picture. I just think that the illustration is so beautiful. So those are, that's a book that I highly recommend, and I'll put that in the resources. But in step 1, she says, give at least half of your garden or land back to nature. If not half, as much as you can manage. Try to grow as much of your own organic food as possible in the other half, and protect and guide your arc to rewild through nature's natural processes, and it will become a more and more complex ecosystem over time. All land is welcome, even a window box full of local soil that allows the native weed seeds to flourish and provide food and reproductive partners for the insects is just great. So, you know, just be thinking about how you might integrate that into your design, because as I said, we've been talking about structure and neat and tidy rows, and you know, this and that in terms of the cultivating that look that we want, but also being able to allow some areas just to be more natural. And this is something that we read right in the beginning of class, and I just feel that we might come full circle to read it one more time at the, being our last class. We are only brief guardians of these portions of land we call our gardens. We do not and cannot truly own them. Our bodies are made of the earth and return to it eventually, but the land will always remain alive. Everything we need to survive and all that nourishes us comes from the earth, its soil, the atmosphere, the sun, and the stars beyond. We are simply walking pieces of the earth. We are drawn to certain locations where the land resonates with us and pulls us towards it. People can spend their entire lives looking for the places where they belong, places where they feel at home, where they fit and can comfortably set down roots. We are simply a reflection of the land beneath us, and nature is always waiting for us to return home. The land connects us in ways we don't always understand. Each of us is attracted to a different space, reflecting our personalities. And every landscape also has its own character that helps shape the culture of the people who live there. And, I guess I really feel that in teaching this class, we're all coming to that place. I really feel that you've each embraced that, and I'm so pleased to have had this time with you. So remember to find pleasure in your gardens. Remember, not work, it's play. Grow the food that you love to eat, and take the time to savor the flavor, the visual beauty, and the sensual qualities that elevate the experience of eating and nourishment. just a few examples of some sweet little gardens that I thought were not perfectly controlled gardens, but that are just really, I'm just going to go back to that one, excuse me, going back here. Just, this is the garden from the Coastal Maine Botanic Garden. I think it was in the children's garden. And, you know, it's definitely not perfect, but it has a charm of its own. And part of that is the fact that the signs are there, and you know, everything is all kind of mushed together. It looks like the calendula has kind of taken over, but just looking at this makes me smile. And honestly, that's the kind of garden I want, a garden that makes me smile. And I had to put my friend Peggy in this. She doesn't know I included her in my class, but I don't think she'd mind. And I put her in here because to me, she's got that garden charm. She basically, this is a house that she rents, and she recently bought it, which is really nice. And when she first started, she just started with some pots on the deck. And then she made a little garden right around the edges here. You can't really, you know, the garden sort of ended here. And then every year she keeps adding more and adding more. And every time I go up and see her, she's added more. And I'm often saying, Peggy, your garden is getting too big. Stop. Too much, but it gives her such pleasure. She's so happy, she can't stop. So I just love the way she's blended all these textures with the chard and the lemon gem and some celery. And every year we go out plant shopping and we come back with things. And I love the way that we come back with sometimes the same plants. And in my garden, they look very different than they do in her garden. But I honestly feel she just pours love into this garden space, and you can really see it just kind of vibrates with that feeling of well-being and happiness. And I had to put this in because this is in the front of my garden, and this is one of the plants that Peggy and I always get. It's called Kiss Me Over the Garden Gate. And I put it in front of the yard, and then I had these volunteer sunflowers that decided to grow as well. And I just like sort of a mishmash. I like it when volunteer plants come up, and I like it when plants kind of grow together, and they're not perfect. There's a lot of terrible foliage on some of these, but it just makes me smile. And so just, you know, making sure that you notice those imperfect places in your garden that make you smile. I want to put this in because the garden, the beautiful water feature on the left is from Hollister House Garden, and the garden on the right is also Hollister House Garden. I took a botanical drawing class there one spring, and just a reminder to stop and try and draw your gardens every now and then. It will really help you observe. I thought I knew what an iris looked like, but then we spent a whole morning drawing an iris. And if you've ever tried to draw a flower, it's way harder than you can imagine. There's so many different layers, and the proportions have to be right. And even the way the foliage comes off the stem is very different. So I really encourage you to take a moment and take a stool out into your garden and just try drawing some foliage or some flowers. And I think you're going to have new insights about what plants look like. And this water feature, many of us have wanted to put water in here. And I just thought this was a great example of how to set up a water feature. I'm not exactly sure if they have how they keep the water from getting stagnant, but it's just so beautiful with the lily pads in it. So make it beautiful, make your gardens beautiful, plant with seeds and plants as your paintbrush, and bring out your personality. And sometimes gardens aren't so beautiful, but you're still growing food, which is beautiful in itself. These are those plant containers. You remember when somebody came up with this idea of these funny paper envelope sort of things that you can put plants in. And one year I decided I was going to do my squash in them. And I didn't really like the way it looked, but at least I could grow squash, and I didn't have to take up precious room in my garden. And same with the gourds. The gourds are really fun to grow, but the plants kind of peter out and look kind of nasty at the end of the season. But, you know, again, just having the joy of plants growing and succeeding with the garden gives me such pleasure. And I don't know where this garden is, but it's a perfect example of layering, especially with the perennial garden, with the tall grasses, and then the shrub on the right-hand side with the berries that the birds are going to just love in the fall or in the winter, and the various layers. And none of it is perfect. This looks like a daylily, and it's all got brown tips. And, you know, this is the way a typical garden can look in August. But there's still a lot of of stuff going on there. We don't need to cut back our gardens. We can let them grow late into the fall and even through the winter, because that's really the way to keep them wild and healthy for the biodiversity. This is also from the Maine Botanic Garden, finding magic places to sit. There's a wonderful fairy garden there that I think I showed you the trolls from the Maine Botanic Garden in one of the earlier lectures. And this was a tree growing in their area. They have this path that you can walk through the woods, and you can build your own little fairy houses and observe fairy houses that people have built, both kids and adults. And I took so many pictures, but this is the one that really struck me, was this remarkable tree growing over the the rocks, and you know, there just was such magic in that whole place. I just couldn't get enough of it. It just felt like I wanted to stay there all afternoon. So finding places to sit and then be inspired by art in museums. The Soul of Wit, as seen at Mass MoCA, has inspired a number of my gardens. I think it might have inspired some of yours as well. And I wanted to just share with you a garden design that is not Soul of Wit, but just using those shapes of interlocking designs. And this was a really hard garden to design, I have to say. They called this the pumpkin seed garden, and this was a client in New Hampshire. And they hired somebody to put the stone in, and then they hired me to put the design in. And it's kind of an odd shape. I came up with a lot of different variations, and this was one that we eventually did. But I wanted to mostly show this to you because we're about to get into the paper to soil portion, that, you know, everything was measured very precisely, every inch of this particular bed, because as a designer, I needed to then transfer it to the person who was actually going to put that garden in. And this is what the garden ended up looking like after that first season. They planted it, not necessarily with the plants that I recommended, but they did a beautiful job. And so really, again, having those little wild and natural. So this looks like it's going to be very tightly cultivated, but then they ended up having quite wild plants growing inside. This is the garden that I feel has a lot of magic. I feel like they need to have a little bell at the beginning of it to sort of warn Tinkerbell that you're coming into the garden now, and she better hide under the cosmos or in this funny little hobbit house. So just getting started to talk about, you know, paper to soil. And I know I should probably take a little break to see if anybody has any questions. We have no breakout rooms during this session because I had so many slides to go through. And if I'm talking too fast, I apologize. You know what? I'm going to take 1 minute here and check the chat room. And I'm going to stop sharing too for a minute to see if anybody has any questions or comments or thoughts about things that we just talked about. Unmute and ramble away, because I need to take a break and a glass of water.
That's a quick question. What was that beautiful lettuce? The one that was like red tinged, and you showed it in your.
Yeah, that's a red iceberg lettuce.
Oh, it's pretty pretty.
And you can get that from, I think you can get the seed from Wild Garden Seeds.
And does it taste good?
Yeah, it's just like a nice iceberg lettuce.
Oh,
Wow,
yeah.
everybody's been talking here. Okay.
Mhm.
Garden Supply has good arch selection, says Julie. Thank you. The photo looks like it's from Rooted Garden in Houston, but they only do local pickup. Okay. Is everybody reading the chats now? Love the garden, love the greenhouse, check the reviews online. My raised garden beds may not be pretty, but I'm glad to see that I'm already gardening in a rewilded area. Great. Another important thing you need to know about a greenhouse, says Linda, is the proper ventilation to make sure the new greenhouse addresses that. Great. Good. So does anybody have any thoughts about rewilding in the garden, or stories that you might like to share about wonderful things you've seen in your garden that you didn't expect?
I just wanted to bring up an author that some of you may be familiar with, a gentleman named Doug Talmey, who wrote a book. He's written several books. Not he hasn't used the term rewilding, but the one that's coming to mind is called Bringing Nature Home.
Yep.
And he was a professor of entomology at the University of Delaware. I think he still is a professor there, but he has gotten almost like celebrity-like status after writing some of these books. And the point of his books is, like your Rewilding, the other woman that you were just describing, take your yard and get rid of the grass, get rid of the monoculture, plant trees. He'll give you, all these details about how many insects a single oak tree will provide.
Over 300.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing, and definitely recommend learning about him. And he also, with some other people, have created an organization called Homegrown National Park. And you can become a member of Homegrown National Park and get your property on their little worldwide map, and just very, very good stuff. I think you all would enjoy learning a little bit more about that, but wanted to recommend him and his work.
Linda, that's great. Yes, I agree. I've heard him talk, and you can actually, I think he's done a number of talks that you can download also on the web.
Yeah.
And definitely worth, yeah, his most recent one is about oaks and how important oak trees are. So
Right.
thank you for that little tidbit, Julie, about how many. I mean, it's pretty amazing to watch. So he's an entomologist, but he has these extraordinary videos of birds collecting insects, and yeah, amazing.
You got to get the bugs to come. If you don't have the bugs, then you don't have anything else.
I know,
Yeah.
but you know what I think about is like how many bugs they eat. So bugs are gonna, I don't know, are we ever gonna lose someone? I don't know. It just boggles my mind that whole chain of the food system.
Yeah, I mean, bats can eat what, like upwards of 1,000 mosquitoes a night. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I know. Yeah, so thank you, Linda. That's a great resource. See, I'm making my list of resources now as you're talking.
Yeah.
We'll put that one down. Anybody else want to share anything about it? I'll tell you my little story. One year I actually had a frog. I don't have a pond near me, but I had a frog that just felt like hanging out, and it was so much fun this frog just would follow me around, and I don't know. I just happen to like frogs and toads, so I was really excited. I was like, "Oh, good, I'm doing something right in my yard." To me, it was like the sign that I'm creating a habitat that this frog likes.
Yeah, we'll find salamanders sometimes in Baltimore City, which is apparently a good indicator of soil health, and my kids love them. So I have to plead with them to leave the salamanders alone. But whenever we usually find a couple a year, and they're always fun to have. And it's one of those things that you don't necessarily expect to find in the middle of the city.
Yeah, good.
But
And
we have
that's, I
big-
love what you said. It indicates good soil health. Yeah. So when we see these things and notice them, that means we are doing something right. That's great. I know that there was a chat that just came up, like, could you repeat what the name of that book is? It's Doug Tallamy.
Right. I believe at least one of his books, I think it's called Bringing Nature Home.
Right.
That might have been his first book, but he has one about oaks. I know that. I haven't read that one. I think he has several books.
Yeah, great. Kathy, I see you just joined us. Did you come in late? Because we already did your design. We can go
Oh, we
back.
did?
I put it right in
Oh.
the beginning. I'm
Oh, that's
sorry.
a shame, because it was Valentine's Day, and and so I gave my husband a piece of this Valentine's cake, and then I ran up here, so oh,
Kathy's in class 1, and then we dropped her into tonight's class. I can go back at some point and go back over it.
okay.
But I know
Yeah,
I was looking for her. I said, I know Kathy's here. I know she is because she sent me her design.
Oh, I know, and I was just like 5 minutes late, I guess, yeah.
So, so anybody else want to share something before we go back in?
Oh, well, we have quite a fairly large koi pond, but we
Mhm.
only have a net over it because it got fished out twice by a heron. But I remember when the kids were younger, my son said, "I'm going downstairs in the middle of the night. I'm going to get that frog." I mean, these are toads, the ones that they start mating early in the spring. And he couldn't sleep because of going, making all that noise, and so he couldn't stand it. That
He
can
didn't-
bring so much nature to you, it can be a little disrupting.
Oh, he didn't like the noise of the
No,
frogs?
he couldn't stand it. He couldn't sleep because he slept right close to the back, in the back, towards the backyard.
Oh,
And
how funny.
the frog, whatever he does, is he goes with that really high pitched sound. They go over and over and over and over again. And
Yeah. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making more notes of things. I got those bird houses one year, you know, so the Kinsman Company is a wonderful catalog for things, and they have these Swellgirls, somebody's gonna have to help me pronounce that. These German-made bird houses that are pretty big, and they're really thick. They're made out of stone or something, and they have certain size holes for the perfect birds, for the bluebirds or for the wrens or whatever. And they're fantastic. I put them up, and like within days, I get the birds coming right to those bird houses. So you might look those up if you want to attract birds into your habitat. And what's nice is they're very cat proof and varmint proof. Nobody can get into them. The squirrels can't get into them, and chipmunks can't get into them.
Can you repeat the name of that?
Well, I know, I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna
Or
put
just
that.
look, yeah, you put it in the resources maybe.
I will, but you'll see if you go onto the Kinsman site, that's really one of that's the only place I've seen that they're
Oh,
available.
okay.
I bet they might even have them at Longwood. Thank you, Morgan, for dropping in the website for that. They might have them at Longwood, I don't know, but.
Okay, I can
just
look
got
at that.
such pleasure putting bird houses up, not just bird feeders in the winter, but then bird houses, and then you can really follow the patterns of who's coming to your yard and all the little babes that they produce.
Oh, and feeding the babies. That's really cute when they bring the babies to
Yeah.
your feeders and feed the bluebirds. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Made me think of it because you were talking about the frog, and I have a Vireo who comes and he goes all day long, and I just put up with it. But yeah, I can see how it gets kind of annoying after a while. All right, we're going to keep going here. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say, but we'll have more time at the end. So paper to soil. So I have to share that this is just a very rudimentary design. This is how, sometimes when I'm just trying to figure things out, I put them together like this. And this is on graph paper. So these, this is not probably going to take up 6 feet, of course. So, don't pay any attention to the boxes here. But, there is a thing called square foot gardening where I think it's Mel Bartholomew has made a ton of money and sold millions of books, where you get this grid and you put it on your garden and you can properly space things out, and it looks sort of like this. I think it's really boring, but a lot of people really like to do that kind of planting. But one of the ways that I kind of try and figure things out is first on graph paper, and then I get pillows or hats or mittens. And I noticed somebody in this class used pillows, and we're going to get to that picture, which I'm so excited to see. But this is a picture from long ago when I did something for Gardener's Supply, and they sold raised beds that were exactly whatever this dimension is. It says 2 feet by 8 feet. And I happen to have my front hall rug is 2 feet by 8 feet. And I thought, let me just see if these plants fit into this space. And so I measured out how many mittens and hats I had and pretended they were plants. And the reason this is important, because some of your designs, you may have more plants or less plants in there. You want to make sure that you're not overbuying plants if you're buying plants, or that you're starting enough seeds or maybe not enough seeds. It doesn't really matter in the long run. But it's good to have some idea of really how many plants you're going to need in that space. And so giving the plants the proper amount of spacing in your garden designs, and we really haven't dwelled on that too much, and I haven't looked at your designs closely enough to really analyze them or not. But this is how I try and figure it out in the middle of winter when I can't go outside. I find a rug that's like 6 by 9, which is a good garden size, or this one happened to be 2 by 8, and just find pillows or hats or mittens or sweaters or something just to lay it out. Another way I do it is with masking tape. And this is how I did all the designs for my very first book. This is actually, I'm out in Michigan working with a group of people who were putting in a community garden, and they had a special area that they wanted to plant. And we had a big kind of working session of different design ideas. And then we took the favorite design and measured it out on the floor. And it's not glamorous, but it gives you the idea. This is the path, the 3-foot wide path, and these are the beds, and then these are the little paths in between. And it's what I call playing house. You know, when we're little kids, or our own little kids love to play house. This is what you want to do with your design at this stage. You want to just see how it feels. That's why I encourage you to go out this week or last week and you know, get the stakes and the twine and measure out that space, because you want to be able to walk through it before you get a contractor in to build it for you, or get your husband or yourself out there to start digging it. You just want to see how it feels. And so if you can't go outside and you have a big area, it really helps to do it with tape. And when I did my first design, I was renting a space in an architect's office, and it was a great big old opera house. So there was lots of room for me to play. And I took the whole upstairs and would put out these designs with masking tape so I could really measure it out and see how they worked. And so I didn't actually plant all of those gardens, but I had enough of an idea of whether it was going to be feasible or not. And then the architect I was working for was able to put these designs on his CAD computer program and you know, just double check things for me. So it's just very helpful to be able to visualize before you go out and start setting up that little garden. I want to show you this picture of the chef at the Equinox. One of the gardens in my book was called the Chef's Garden, and I wanted to photograph him in the garden. And so I designed his garden, and then we stretched out the strings and the twine and made the paths. These are the paths here, and then these are going to be the individual beds. And then he went out and started digging. This is not a fork, a digging fork. He used some kind of a drill. I don't really know. It looks like it's sort of a bulb planter kind of thing. But, you know, I just let him do it. I love the way he's out there in his chef whites drilling in the garden. And then he had a helper here on the left. And then this is what the garden ended up looking before he started planting it. He had his sous chef out there also with his whites. I don't know, it cracks me up, with the apron, and then his helpers, and then we planted it. And we mostly just put in herbs. You know, it wasn't a big enough garden for him to grow enough food to supply his whole restaurant. He was feeding probably 1,000 people on a weekend, but he did want fresh culinary herbs. So we really packed it full with all kinds of wonderful herbs, and he just loved that garden. And he put a bench in, and sometimes I would go over there and just see him sitting on the bench just to get away from the kitchen. So it was very successful. And then this is, I think I showed you this when we did the session on paths. He put in his own funny little paths. But that's how the garden kind of came about, with the sticks and the twine, and then digging in it. And then this is Margie and her husband putting their garden in also with the very simple rudimentary sticks and twine, and just kind of visualizing where the tomatoes are going to go. And I just wanted to share this picture of their kids, their 2 young kids who are now in college. That's how long it's been since I took this photo, of enjoying that space with the zinnias and the lettuce. And so they really got quite a lot in that very small space. And just a reminder of my yard, which didn't look so nice. I had that nice little raised bed there, which was terrible soil in my garden shed. And I invested in that wheelbarrow. I think that was the very first tool I bought. And then probably that rake that's leaning against the tool shed. And then I just kept working at it. And I created this garden with the help of, I did hire people to help me put this in. We put in a retaining wall to make it level because it sloped down. And then I did what I call the walkthrough. This is how it's set up. because I had this landscape crew, they put in that beautifully formed garden path with the bark mulch, and then I could walk through it and see how it felt to go into that space. And notice I put my garden bench in right away. And then this is the garden as it kept evolving. I surrounded it with the arborvitae, which is now, they're now about 12 feet tall, and really form quite a barricade. But you can see it just sort of evolved over time. So when I start my garden in the spring, sometimes I do it in a very methodical way. This was one year I started a lot of seeds in little seedling trays, and I think it was probably being photographed for a magazine. So I wanted to make sure it had a certain order to it. But most of the time I just put it directly into the ground. And I love this quote from Thomas Jefferson: "Plant a thimbleful of lettuce every Monday morning, and then you'll have a succession of greens all summer long," which is really lovely. And remember just to be patient, because sometimes gardens don't take off. We get them in the ground and then we have to wait. This garden drives me crazy because it's absolutely packed with weeds. This is that weed that's just rampant. And in Vermont, I can't remember what it's called, but you just don't want to let that go to seed. But eventually this gardener got it under control, and the garden, this is what it looked like in the end of August, and it looked pretty darn nice. The lemon gem marigold was coming out, and the cabbages caught up, and everything looked so beautiful. So just patience and diligence to get those weeds out of the way. So remembering that really what you're doing with your garden is creating sanctuary. This is a student photo from one of the classes I taught a couple of years ago. And I wanted to show this to you in particular because this has Nepeta around the edges. Some of you have talked about putting in lavender, and Nepeta is a really nice substitute for lavender if you don't have the time to allow lavender to grow, or you're not in a climate like Vermont where this garden was actually in Maine, so Nepeta is going to do better than the lavender. But I love what she did with her design, that she took my class, and then this is what she created: the 4 raised beds with the little teepee in the center to give it a little height. And this is within a little area, a little garden area that was part of her pool. So, you know, she didn't have a huge backyard, but she did have a fenced in area around her pool. So she put this in, and then softening the edges with the pots. We've talked about that. And then creating a little hedge of this lovely little Nepeta. So I thought that was a sweet solution to a small space garden. And then a picture of my garden on a good day. This is taken by drone, just to give you an overview of really what a small contained garden. You can see the boxwood here, and then the arborvitae, and this is that same garden that I was just showing you, but I've changed my path out to be stone, and I pack a lot in here. You can see I have cucumbers and tomatoes and kale and collards, and I don't even know what all these things are. Rhubarb, of course, because I do a lot of layering, and it just becomes this wonderful tapestry of green. But this is what my garden can look like. I can make it wild. I can let things just go crazy. This was a year, I don't know what I did to the soil, but all these plants just took off and were just out of control. This is the Grandpa Ott's morning glory that just took over the center tree. But you can see here I have artichokes and amaranth and lemon jam and all kinds of things. And it's not that pretty little garden that I just showed you. It's just a little bit crazy, but you know, there was a lot. I think this was the year I had my pet frog. You know, it was really creating a wonderful habitat. But, you know, it starts off looking like this. It looks very tame, and then it just turns into this crazy wild mix. I think this must have been the same year because I see the artichoke in that same place. So, you know, I don't know. I just think it's kind of fun to have a little wild space that you can enjoy. And it's fun to start it off tame and nice in June, but then having it wild in August is also nice. It's like having 2 separate gardens. I had to put this in because this is one of my neighbors where I used to live, and I just love their wild garden, and they're so proud of this garden. And I used to walk through it and go, this isn't the garden I want. It's too wild. But it's just a reminder that I have changed as a gardener. I was a gardener who liked to have everything have their perfect spacing and contained, but this is what I really aspire to now, because I understand how important it is to have wild gardens. But but also, you know, the appreciation of allowing the plants just to have their own form and freedom. Notice has this funny little sculpture in the front. And just remembering to put your bench wherever the most fragrant flowers are. This is the fairy wands or Simus fugia, and it's the in the cohosh family, the black cohosh, and I just adore this plant. If I could have one plant, this is what I would have. And what I love about it is that it really does bounce in the wind. In you know, with these little, as the other name, as I say, is fairy wands, but it has a very sweet honey flavored, and it's constantly filled with bees. So sometimes I take those garden benches out of my vegetable garden and I put them where the fragrance is. And I just remembered, I'm just a reminder to take the time to sit in your sweet spot of the garden and really appreciate and observe what's happening around the garden. And just another little pretty little ornamental thing to add into the garden. This is a garden that usually looks quite contained. And again, he was having a wild year. I think we had a lot of rain that year. This was a garden that you saw, but from a different angle. And I just had to throw this in just as a reminder that, you know, wild is really beautiful, and it doesn't have to be all neat and tidy. Again, this is a bean arch. He created these bean, rather than having a tutor that you buy from Gardener Supply, you can create things with little saplings that you can cut from the woods and create these wonderful, majestic bean arches. And what else do we have in here? I know there's the chard, and then the bee balm, and the perennials are on the outside of the fence, and the vegetables on the inside of the fence. All right, so that's most of the lesson. I want to get back into talking about your gardens again. Elise, you've come a long way. I think I have a couple of your photos. I want to just show a few that you did that I think are really quite wonderful. But this is your final. This looks like your final design. Do you want to talk to us about your garden?
Sure. So this is close to final. I'm tweaking some things still, so
Okay.
it's not quite there. Trying to blend a few things based off of what we'd talked about before. And with the layering, I've been looking at it. It's like I have beans next to corn in here, but you know, it's two of the three sisters. I actually want to integrate those and have the beans be more of the ground cover for the
Yep.
corn. I don't love squash, so that sister gets left behind. We won't be planting that. But just starting to blend things a little bit more, wanting to look at the layering. That's one of my goals here as I move into the final design. And that sort of extension piece that you see off of it, this is the front of our house. We can't have a shed in our front yard. Zoning will let us keep it behind the house. Eventually we will have one as we start to join different parts of our yard together. But our garage was recently rebuilt and we did design it with extra space. So there is a planting area in there. There's a sink, there's tool storage. So it's like a little mini shed. So I'm actually pretty excited now to put the kitchen garden in front, and happy that, you know, that wasn't where I'd originally planned, but now that sort of keeps that shed space a little bit closer and more accessible. So it's one of those happy accidents.
So you're gonna be able to put a sign in your yard that says this is a kitchen garden. I mean, or
Yeah, we have neighbors that
Okay.
have, you know, natural habitat signs and things along those lines as well. So it'll fit right in. It will.
That's great. Well, I think it's so pretty. I want to show some other things that you did because you did so much detail. And again, I just have to say to all of you, I'm just so pleased that I asked you to immerse yourself in this project, and I really feel that you did great work. I will confess that if I were taking an online class, I don't think I would have done as well as all of you, because you really did the work and you turned it in on time, and it's just wonderful. And I love. Many of you wrote me notes too, and I couldn't put all of your notes in here, but I did read everything, and it really gave me an appreciation for what you were working on. And so I liked what you said, Elise, that this is the initial design drawn for the kitchen garden, which was very busy and also grass separating. And then you ended up changing that to this, which so I love seeing that way that you've done that.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun. It's sort of like what is important. And yeah, I don't want a lot of grass. I want to have some structure in there, but then also let it run wild because I'm not here all the time. And that's, to me, part of the fun of it is letting it take over a little bit.
Yeah. And I know this wasn't as much fun maybe to design the potting shed in the garage, but you did a great job with it. You even have your hanging storage for tools and your wheelbarrow and stuff. So I think you did a great job with this.
Thank you.
And then the measuring. So I was intrigued that you're measuring, you went out and you really did do the measuring 58 feet deep from strip to street. So you really did all this, which is really cool. And then you determined that you need a 42 square for the design, but you do have the space. So that's great. So this was helpful for you to do that measuring.
Yeah, and then the big sort of wheel picture that I have is to scale. So it did actually lay out and seem to work.
Great, great. Well, good. Well, I hope we get to see how you do it this summer and how it progresses. I know
We'll see. There's some construction that actually we have, when you say you had to bring your yard to grade to level it, we have to as well. So we're talking with some folks for stonework right now, and we'll see if that can happen this year or if we have to be patient for a year. We'll see.
For 5 years, right? Good.
Yeah,
Well, very
no,
nice.
like 20 years, but okay. Thank you.
That's good. Well, at least you know you'll be there for that long, right? Something to look forward to.
Actually.
Great
you.
job. Thank you so much. Julia, are you with us tonight? No. So I sort of remember Julia's design here, and that there's the hill, and originally she had it here. There was a dog. This is a dog fence, and then the garden was originally over here, and then she pushed it over here. But I just wanted to talk to her more about, I want to talk to you more, Julia, about your design. But I'm sure you're working on it, so maybe we could just, we'll just follow up when you submit your final design, because it's going to be beautiful. I like this particular shape, the way she's put in so many, everything has its own little categories. So she can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different things in that grid. So that's a nice shape. Julie, I know you're with us.
Hi.
You are.
Yes,
Hi.
I'm here. Sorry.
That's
Kids
okay.
in and out.
Okay. I'm not sure I have all of you have a design, right? Do I have your design?
I do. You should have a sheet with 3 like different versions on it. No?
Well, that's what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. So it might have dropped into a different folder. So I apologize that this is all I have to show tonight. I can go
Oh,
back.
that's okay. No worries.
But you did quite a detailed thing with your map and with your garage and your compost. I mean, do you want to explain you have a passive compost with the yard waste? Do you want to, I mean, you're very knowledgeable about gardening. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your process, and then maybe describe what the garden is that you've designed that I seem to have misplaced.
Yeah, sure. No, I can grab it too. I have it somewhere probably. But yeah, so on the right-hand side where the brown strip is, where it transitions from green to brown, that's actually the garden that I was talking about. So we have a long garage, it's 45 feet long, and the garden bed is 38 or 36 inches wide with an 18-inch bluestone cap. So we did all the work. We've been in our house for 8 years, and so we've done pretty much everything outside. So we're doing the kitchen next month, yay! Which is the first thing we've done in the house. But we started, I had all my gardening in pots on the left-hand side of the garage, like, because there's a little bit of space between our driveway. We have driveway, pea gravel, and then a fence between us and our neighbors. But yeah, so this is just the back of our garage. The passive compost, we have a huge red maple tree in our front, and I don't clear leaves. And every landscaping company that drives by, they'll knock on the door and ask if because my entire yard will be covered and everybody else's yard is not. So I drag them under the tree. I weed whack a lot of them. You can put them in a big trash bin and just weed whack them down, and it's amazing how fast you can cut down your leaves. So I need some place for yard waste because we live in the city. And then our active compost, the composters that you recommended last class are really, really reasonable compost systems. So their 2-bin compost system is a couple $100. So I think I'm just gonna get that and install it on the back. And I have a garden shed that's already, it's just on our back porch right now. So when we walk out the back door, my garden shed is just right on my back porch. And then I just walk, I don't know, 30 feet to the garden, to the garage. But I think I'll move that to the back. And then if I turn it, it kind of hides the compost system really nicely. It's a really pretty one that I got on sale from Front Gate. So it's teak with a nice little galvanized roof on it. So it's held up pretty well. And then some of your wilding ideas, like the raspberries on the back fence line, that's going to be new this year. My kids are they eat berries all the time. So I read kind of that you can do 3 different varieties for like an early, a middle, and then a late. So we'll drape those all over the fence that goes across the back of our backyard. That's just one of those really ugly standard picket fences. It's not painted. And then the garden bed, I wish I had a picture that I could show you, but the garden bed, I'll do an arch outside of the garden bed at the end of the garage that I'm going to put. There's a starburst melon that I found that's like dark green with a yellow outside, and they're really small. And that you can grow on a vine. So I'll do that on a trellis. And then our garden bed, a couple of just different ones that I found. We're going to do a white eggplant, which like I read cookbooks, and Edna Lewis has her cookbook, one of her cookbooks. She really likes white eggplants because they're not bitter. Fish peppers, which are like a Baltimore, Philadelphia pepper. They're an heirloom variety. And then white okra. I really like okra. I'm from Virginia. We ate a lot of it. I mostly get fried. That's how all vegetables are best, is fry them. I'm just kidding. Okra is like the only one I fry, but white okra, and then you can let that go to flowers, which are really, really beautiful. I volunteer with the Farm Alliance of Baltimore, which is a community urban garden, and they have a teaching farm, and they grow a lot of different varieties and stuff. So this year they did okra, and they let a bunch of it go to flower, and it just looked really lovely in the fields. And then you get all your bugs and such. We do that. I do it with dill too. So we eat some of the dill, but a lot of the dill I just let to go to flower. I surround my cucumbers with it. Usually, and that just looks really pretty. And then I grow white marigolds because I think marigolds are ugly. I'm sorry. But I really, really like they look like they're huge. They look like huge white snowballs. And so those I kind of add through the garden as just a little bit of color, but not color. And then black nasturtiums.
Ooh, wow. That's
Which will
fast.
be-
Black nasturtiums. I don't know what those are. I don't
It's
think I've-
it's a black, I mean, it's black, black something, black violet, something like that. A newer variety, and our house is like a cream. And I have 2 metal window boxes that are a really pretty design on the side of the garage. So I can grow those either out of it, or just kind of in a filler. In the garden last year, I just grew it in the back to just kind of fill some space. And it looked
Interesting.
nice.
I know, I remember you were the one who had some great ideas for seed catalogs. So you really do you love those experimental catalogs.
It's really fun. I mean, I'm a huge reader. And like I said, I volunteer with the Farm Alliance. And one of the things that we're doing is a dinner series highlighting like agricultural people like George Washington Carver and people like that. So part of it is kind of seeds and discussion of seeds and seed savings. So that's been for the past 2 or 3 years since something that's been super interesting. Like the gentleman who found the freezer full of seeds, what's his name? His grandson's actually going to come to one of our dinners in the fall and
William
speak,
Morris
I think.
Reaver. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to do, I think, the talk at our dinner in the fall. Because that one honors fish peppers and just talks about kind of
Fantastic.
heirloom seeds and just how easy it is to just kind of, food sovereignty,
Yeah. Yeah.
access to food,
How
stuff like that.
refreshing. That's wonderful.
So
I I hope everybody feels the same way as I do, that I think it's just fascinating to hear you talk about all these different things, because it just expands our own understanding and community. Great.
I mean, really, your class, I've taken a lot of online classes, Ellen, and this is the only one that I actually have paid attention in. I'm not gonna lie. Most of the time I
Oh.
turn my video off and read.
Oh, good. Well, that's really sweet.
You're very engaging.
Oh, thank you.
And
Well,
so the classmates, I mean, all of you guys I've learned a ton from. Like,
yeah, I
so
agree.
much. Yeah, it's been a super duper class of people.
Well, thank you, Julie. When I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, if I have time, I'm going to go back in and see if I can pull some of your designs up, because I feel really badly that I don't have them.
Oh, it's
Here.
okay. I'm really late too. So like I never turn anything on time. So
Okay, that doesn't
yeah.
make a bit of difference. But great. I love your work, and I'm so glad that you've been in our class, because you've contributed a lot. So thank you.
Thanks.
Ellen, if
Yeah.
you don't mind me jumping in, Julie, I'm
No.
just curious who you have coming in to speak about food sovereignty.
Well, food sovereignty is kind of one of just the blanket missions of the Baltimore Food Alliance, and it's the grandson, whatever, is who found the seeds from outside of Philly. I'm so sorry, I can't remember his name right this moment.
It's okay. That's
But
our
yeah, it's my executive director, Denzel Mitchell, is somebody who's responsible for restoring heritage fish
Got it.
pepper in Baltimore, and he is connected with him at one of the agricultural conferences.
Okay. Gotcha.
When I
Okay.
will think of his name and I can put it in the chat for you.
Okay. I was wondering because I work with some folks at a company called True Love Seeds. We've done some
Yes, True
programming with
Love's
them.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure if it might be one of those guys. But
I don't think it's one of those guys, but we have interacted with them, and hopefully we can get some of those people to come down to Baltimore for the dinner as well.
okay. I'm
There's a
going to
lot of
drop their
conversation.
website link in the chat if anyone is looking to order seeds this year. True Love
They're
Seeds is a
wonderful.
really great company.
And
So
they are a white-owned company, and they did like a whole list of like Black-owned, white-owned companies, and they were just like, we are, but we're so invested in just like the African diaspora and just getting crops to people who it's nice to have something that tastes like home.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting what you can grow here too. Like they grew
Yeah.
peanuts in Baltimore. We were growing peanuts in Baltimore last summer. So
yeah, it is. It's cool. Okay. Sorry to interject, Ellen.
No. Actually, I'm glad you did. I don't know if there's anybody else who has questions for Julie. Also in the class. All right.
That's
Well, great. Good work.
thank
All
you.
right. Hopefully I'll get through this, and I mean, I don't mean to say get through this, but we might have a little time afterwards to keep going. Karen, you're here, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. So this is a picture stepping back just to show an aerial view of our yard, which is about 2 acres, and it's very open. And what we wanted to do was to put in our kitchen garden here next to the house. So that's shown in the yellow rectangle. And we have a small barn. So instead of having a potting shed or a shed right where the kitchen garden is, it fits better in to have it on the ground level of the barn. So that's the general layout.
It's interesting to see. This must be a stream or something.
Yeah, we do have a stream that goes through the property. So, yeah, I've been thinking beyond the kitchen garden. You know, we love to have, you know, local native plants along the stream, like irises, and a moss garden further up. But that's part of the 5-year plan, perhaps.
Nice. And so I'm going to just go through all the pictures I have, and then you can tell me which one you want to talk about, because this is just so interesting the way you did this. I think we saw this last year. So this was the way you're setting up the measurements of the garden, which is great. And as we talked about last time, as I remember, this is one area of the kitchen garden, and then this was going to be flowers. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have room to have 2 kitchen gardens, and it's a terraced area. And so the lower kitchen garden I talked about last time. So Since then, I've spent more time thinking about the upper kitchen garden, and that's the whimsical, more flower garden, which is completely crazy. But we also have a sitting area there at the corner of the house, which we will be able to look down on both gardens. And I did the measurements. I didn't take the pictures, but we used twine and stakes and measured it out, and it will fit pretty perfectly like this. But I'm sure I'll make modifications. So this is the really crazy, whimsical garden, the upper level garden. So I changed things around a little bit from the initial design, and it's way too much stuff. And I totally know, but I think it would be fun to plant a little bit of a lot of things, like particularly herbs and flowers, and see what grows well. And then, you know, for the following year, pare it down. And again, I'm very interested in yarn dyeing, so I want to have one area for flowers, for yarn dyeing, one area that's purple garden with purple vegetables, and a couple of areas for herbs. In the circle, I'm thinking just different types of basil, with wild strawberry border around the alpine strawberries, as a, and then for the herbs and salad area, just trying out a few different things and see what grows well. So it's completely whimsical, but I think it's going to be, I'll see how much I plant, but I would like to try a bunch of things, and I'm probably totally crazy.
No, you're not. I think it's wonderful. I absolutely love it. I love the way you've laid it out. I love the way you say, I'm just going to try all these things and they're not probably going to work, but I'll see what works. I just like that spirit. I'm so impressed. It's great. And I love the way you're willing to try to be whimsical. I just want to go back a little bit, because I think, you know, I wanted to just, oops, I get going the wrong way here. You know, it looks so plain and ordinary when you look at it like this, but then when you see this is your, you know, your vegetable garden, which you showed us last time, and then this is the fun, wild, colorful. I just think it's great.
Well, you know, I come from Sweden originally, and the season is very short. And so to live in Delaware and have such a long season, and the ability to grow so many different things, it's mind-boggling. So I can't contain myself.
Well, I applaud you. You've got, this is great. This is wonderful. Anybody else want to comment or cheer on Karen for making such an effort? Are you going to start some things from seed and some things from plants, probably a combination of things?
Yeah, I was hoping to doing most seeds actually, but if they fail me, I will go and buy some plants.
Yeah. Yeah. I
love
like
the idea of the, sorry to interrupt, I love the idea of the dye garden. That has me interested.
Oh,
Are you a, do you knit or do you crafts with the?
Well, I actually do weaving on the loom.
Okay.
So it's for dyeing yarn for that. And you know, so I've done some in the past, and yellow is very fun to grow, and you can have different shades of yellow. Marigold works really well. And yellow is fun because you can over dye and then get green and orange, you know. So with indigo and madder root and yellows, you can do a lot.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to try to do as much as I can myself, and just see what works.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It
Yeah,
is. And
oh.
looking at what I was just going to say is looking at the varieties that you've chosen, you've really done your research, I think, because you're not choosing anything that's too out of space. You know, it's like the red Hopi dye is a wonderful old reliable heirloom variety, and the other ones are just all, you know, they're probably going to work for you in your climate.
Well, we'll try it, and thanks for the encouragement.
I mean, I think the dye garden is such a cool idea. I would
Oh,
love to see
you.
your yarn that you dye with that. That must be beautiful.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It is amazing the colors you can get from nature. You know, you would think that they would be mostly subdued, but no, you can get really bright and incredible colors. And then of course it is nice with the subdued also. And just the range of colors you can get, and how people have done this for thousands and thousands of years.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I love it.
yeah.
Oh,
Thank
last time I love the purple garden. I love the dye garden, and I live close. So Karen, I want to come see it when it's
Oh,
done.
well, thank you so much. Morgan, I'm just scared that we're going to have this meeting in the fall and I'm still leveling the terrace.
No pressure, no pressure.
But maybe we'll have to go down another year after
Yeah.
fall and see where we are then.
Yeah, well, we could also, you know, we could reconvene this time next year when we're all planning. That might be a better time to do it because we might be overwhelmed in the fall, but this time next year we could reconvene and have, maybe if Tim's listening, we can have like part 2 and we can go to the next level then of other things that we weren't able to cover in this class. That might be kind of neat.
I love the idea of staying in touch and continuing and see
Yeah.
what people get. And also, yeah, a year goes fast. Maybe next year also.
Yeah, we can jump ahead.
I will really agree with Julie that it's been an amazing class, and I just love listening to everyone. You guys are so good. I've learned so much from you all.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. I'm going to keep moving here because I'm putting my eye on the clock and it's scary a little bit. I can never remember how many more we have to do. Linda, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, so, oh, that's right, Linda, hi. So I
Hi.
love how you did this. I was saying, yeah, put pillows down and hats.
Yes.
And so when I saw this, I just had to laugh to myself because you're doing exactly what I was saying to do.
Yeah.
You just put
Yeah.
something to visualize it.
I was sort of in a hurry and I didn't want to go find my measuring. I have one of those Mason tapes that you were showing, but I didn't
Yeah.
want to go find it. And I was like, let's just get this done. We were expecting the snow. And anyway, I used the cushions to simulate some raised beds that I want to add to this particular area. And the dimensions, I mean, it's not exact, but I think they will fit the way I wanted them to.
Yeah. Well, I must say you have the most beautiful stonework there in that brick. I mean, you
Yeah,
got,
it looks a little shabby now, but it is
no, it
yeah,
looks great.
it is beautiful. It really is beautiful. And then this is also the area where wait a minute, there's some espalier trees, fruit trees on this retaining wall.
Yeah, I don't think oh, right there.
Like
Maybe.
right, I'm
Yeah,
trying to use the pencil there. There's like one there.
yeah.
Can't really see them, but they look pretty when they're
Oh, wow.
leafed out. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think I have just a few of your slides. I remember I loved your tool area. This is beautiful, the way you have it so organized.
Yeah, it isn't always that organized, but we got it at a good day, I guess.
Yeah, and it looks like you have all the right tools. And I love this little thing that you wrote about the pick when I first saw this, I said, well, what would you need to pick Maddox? But I just want everybody to, would you just read this, what you wrote? Because it's so pretty.
You want me to read it? Sure.
Yeah.
So I have yeah, I'm reading it. I have a pick / Maddox, which is in the picture. It's the one that looks like a pick. And I've always called it a Maddox, and I had to look online to see if I was spelling it right or saying it right. It's also, you can see it spelled Mattox too.
Huh.
But I just use that spelling. But anyway, that particular tool belonged to my father. The head of the Maddox must have been a little too loose on the handle, so he drove a nail into the handle to better secure it. The handle itself is slightly warped, perhaps after being left outside in the rain a few too many times. This tool is a workhorse and one I use all the time for edging a bed, digging a hole to plant a tree or perennial, or I may use the heavy end to help drive a stake into the ground. And I do use that all the time. It's not, I don't have a prissy garden. I have a working garden. You know, I'm not going around clipping little flowers. I'm usually sweating and working my butt off. But anyway, what am I saying here? Okay, I use antique garden hand tools, right? So they're
And I
not
have a
necessarily
picture of that.
always.
I have a picture of that. And are these
Yeah.
your paintings? Are you a painter?
I do not, those are not my paintings, but I am a big thrifter.
Uh-huh.
And so I buy, when I was designing and decorating this is my she shed. I'm actually speaking to you from my she shed. And when this was built, I wanted to decorate it and ended up collecting these, you know, not particularly great works of art, but they all had a garden or plant theme. And then I collected used garden tools and sort of created a montage or whatever you would want to call it to decorate the inside the she shed. I actually borrowed the idea from, I don't know if any of you in the Philly area anyway might have heard of the Barnes Foundation. And it's a collection of art, and you'll have to look it up, but it was a private collection, the Barnes Foundation, and the gentleman that amassed this immense collection of art, he displayed the art in his home, but he also put like architectural objects on the wall by the painting. So that's sort of how I got the idea, to just put the paintings up with garden tools. So it's a borrowed idea, but yeah.
It looks so nice. You sent me some other photos and I was like, wow, this place is gorgeous. And look at your bird boxes and stuff. I just want to see
Right.
lots more pictures. You have things all over the place. I wish we had
Yeah.
one class so you could just show us your she shed.
Yeah,
It's
well, you can all come and visit me if you're in the area. I'd be
Is it-
happy to show.
not you. So I don't have any more photos of yours, but you did a beautiful job. You sent me a lot of different things and I just
Yeah.
love this idea of mixing these tools with the paintings. It's
Yeah.
really great.
Thank you. Yeah, and my final design is not done yet, but it's close. It's more eliminating some things from my previous designs because of some space constraints, I suppose. So, but it's mostly going to be the same as what I've already presented.
Great. Well, that's good. You
Yep.
have a lot of garden to work with, so you did a great job.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, thank you.
Would you mind getting rid of those little red things?
Oh yeah, wait, how do I do that? Did
Thank
that
you.
work? Yeah,
That's
okay.
Thank you. Nice work. Really nice to see your place. It does look like we all need to come visit you. It looks really fun.
You're all welcome.
Thank
Yep,
you.
I love it.
Thank you. Margaret, are you with us? Margaret?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Oh, you're Peggy. Hi. Well,
Hi.
I think I only have this one of yours. Let me just see. Yes, I only have
I
this
think
one. But it's very, very colorful. It feels like a coloring book. It's great.
I've
And-
only changed a couple of things from the last version.
Uh-huh.
I took out one of the rows of holly in the front and put in a strawberry bed.
Oh, good.
So I thought that would be nice.
Yep.
I added a couple of bay laurel trees in the back by the fence.
Nice.
I spent some time this week trying to plan out my herb garden and realized that in the place where that's gonna go, there's no room for a bay laurel tree.
Hmm.
And I did want to get the bay leaves into the mix. So, and
Great.
they're evergreen, I think, so that'll make a nice backdrop for the garden area.
Uh-huh.
And the only other thing I did was put some of the what I call the tchotchkes back in. The wind
Okay.
spinner and the tutor and here with the roses, with the tomatoes.
Uh-huh. Here. Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
And remind me, how
Uh,
much of this do you have already in? Anything? I mean, do you have the beds, or this is going to be a whole
No. This is vacant, totally vacant area.
Okay, so this is your part of your 5-year plan. This will be great. It's
Right.
nice. You have a lot of space in between the beds, which I really like. And I like the way you have the shed and the compost, and you're really integrating, the whole space and using it, but not filling it too much. It's great.
I wanted to leave enough room to get between the beds with the, I actually use a wheelbarrow. I have a wagon,
Okay.
a little red wagon,
That's cute.
to be able to maneuver around in there. So I think that'll be,
So
it
where are
looks
you,
like too much space to me, but I think it's probably actually fine.
is this where you enter in here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I wasn't sure, because I don't see a bench anywhere, so you might have to, no, I was gonna say, where's your bench? You're gonna have to put that in somewhere.
I forgot to put the bench back in. It was where you are right now, there where the marigolds.
Oh, good, that's right, I do remember, it was like you had it at a funny angle.
I did have it at a funny angle.
Okay, okay, now I remember. Oh, this is great, and then you're the one with the red sunflowers here, that looks really pretty. That's gonna be
Yes.
a beautiful combination, nice.
I think that'll look good, yeah.
Well, good job, I'm very impressed, and again, I want to see how you do it. It's good, very nice. Great, I'm gonna keep going here. Stacy, are you with us tonight?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, good. Hi. I
Hi.
just love your sense of humor and whimsy. You have 3 children, right? You have 2 twins and a 7-year-old. Tell us a little bit about your design here.
Yes, 3 kids, a set of twins, a 3-year-old who does keep popping in here, so you might see him.
Oh,
So inspiration for our garden, I sent you pictures, so you saw that I have absolutely nothing.
Yes,
Like,
so I'm gonna
yep.
show that. I'm gonna show that. But I just have to like sing your praises, because with 3 children, I mean, you just accomplished so much. I love the idea that you want to make it fun and whimsical.
Yeah.
And then you did a great job with all of your drawings. So this is a panorama of the backyard space.
Right. So you can see that's the white over there is the shed we just put in. We haven't even been in this new house a year yet.
Uh-huh.
So right behind the property line in the back is like a walking trail. And
Okay.
that goes far past all those trees back there.
Nice.
So eventually in my 5-year plan, I'm gonna kind of make a privacy border here for us. So
Mhm.
not everybody on the walking trail can see everything we're doing. But to the right, that side, well, yep, that's the left where I want the garden to go. But on
Yeah.
the right, where my neighbor's shed is,
Yeah.
that's gonna be all perennials. That'll eventually be like my cut flower garden, because I do preserve flowers. So that'll be a part of it. But again, that's 5-year plan. So
And then, so then this is where your garden area, we're about to see, I think you have I think I have a picture of your garden
yeah.
plan, is this. So
Yeah.
this is where it's gonna go, which is cool, because I love it with the proximity to all the play structures and stuff. And
Right.
you just done such a beautiful job with this, because you have your list of all the things you want to grow with your herbs, separated by herbs and flowers. And
Yeah.
then you place them all. I don't know, it's just great.
I'm glad you think so, because my 3 kids helped me with this.
Oh,
So these are a lot of their requests. And being that I never did vegetables before, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what went where. So that took a lot of work.
Uh-huh.
But as you can see, like I didn't want to do raised beds. I want to do it in the ground, and I wanted to give it like a maze feel to it. So it's kind of more fun for them, but it was difficult in such a, rectangle space to kind of make it whimsy, I guess.
Well, that's why I think it's so wonderful, because you do create this. I mean, this is not any design that I came up with, it's just like it's all yours. You come in through here, right? And then you walk around through here under this big trellis, and then around over to here. And then and it's just so fun.
Yes, thank you. So where that cut flower garden is, that's going to be like my mini garden flower now. But then eventually, I don't know if you have the slide that I sent you with like different 5-year plan ideas. But
that's right. You did this too, which is extraordinary. You did the whole spring planting calendar. I didn't ask anybody to do this, but you just added this on, and I'm going, whoa, extra credit.
That's
Good.
I need to be like, I definitely need one of those journals, because I definitely need to know like when to go out there, set the reminder to plant this again. Yeah, so I had to do that for myself.
Isn't that impressive? You're very organized. You're very
Thanks.
wonderful. Wonderful. It's great that you're getting your kids to do this too.
Yeah, that was the big thing, because they are absolutely terrible at eating veggies right now. So I'm hoping if they get out there and they plant them with me, and, they get to play out there and see, a lot of the list of all of the things that we're planting are kind of cool. Like, that mermaid, what was that? The lettuce?
Mermaid's tail cabbage. Yeah.
So my one daughter's obsessed with mermaids, so she loved that idea. The like moon and stars, watermelon, they love watermelon, so that was a big one. A lot of different things like that I went through the seed catalogs and looked at.
Oh, I just love that you're involving your children in this.
Yeah.
And warn them that not everything's going to work, but you might as well try.
Oh yeah, it was like I said, I'm a total newcomer at this, but my 3-year-old son, his big thing was strawberries. And it was heartbreaking for us to realize that we don't actually get strawberries the first season. So, yeah.
You could, get a strawberry pot and put in those alpine strawberries. You'll get strawberries off of those.
That's what I thought I was going to do. That's what I have in the picture. Those pots are for strawberries over there in the red. So I was hoping we could get him something, because he's just really pumped to get out there for strawberries. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's wonderful. I'm so enchanted by it.
Thanks. And Alice in Wonderland is a family favorite movie of ours. So these were just little cool, like Alice in Wonderland themed stuff. Like that's what I want for the gate to be going into the garden. And then they're just little statues and stuff. And if you remember, like, and anybody that saw Alice in Wonderland, when the flowers are singing, we're planting a lot of those flowers in the garden and around, as the perennials. So.
Well, I tell you, it just makes me smile. It does.
That's the plan. That's what I'm hoping to get the reaction out of all the people that come walking down the trail.
Yeah. And I really do think that this is doable. I like the fact that you're not going to go just with raised beds, that you're actually going to dig that out and, into something. It's going to be great.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to say anything to Stacy? You might have lost
I
it.
love it. I think it's great.
Thank
I love
you.
that the kids are involved with it. They have like ownership in the design and the whole thing. So
Yeah.
Very creative.
Yeah.
Getting your kids to choose things to grow will really help them learn to eat those vegetables. So go for it. It worked here.
There's
Absolutely.
like a red carrot that's supposed to be like super sweet or something.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
one up there, because I can't get them to eat a regular carrot from the food store. So we'll see.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Interesting. You might put in, I don't see any sunflowers. You might put sunflowers
Oh,
in.
that's right
It's-
in up, right there, go down where the yellow is.
This is it? These are all
Down, no, other side. Right
those.
there. That's gonna be a whole sunflower patch.
Oh, great, 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 great. Rose is gonna be tricky, but anyways,
Yeah.
good job. I'm so
Thank you.
impressed. Susan, are you with us?
I am here.
Oh, good, good. I'm still a little confused by your design. Did I miss something here? Are you still working on where to put it and things? I might have just.
No, you should have, I submitted 3 things yesterday, the day before.
Oh, there we go. This
That's
is
one
your.
of them. Yep.
Good. Then I might have missed something too, because as I said, things were sort of layered in different folders and I was sort of working from the bottom up.
Okay, the first picture you pulled up is just the aerial view. It's old and it's off of Google Maps, but there have been some changes in our yard. So this is a couple years out of date.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's accurate for what we're doing here.
Oh, good. And I think you turned this in to do the tools in the garden shed area. So you've kind of figured out sort of the lay of the land where you're putting things and this is where you're.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is already in place and has been for years.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so, and we're actually already utilizing our garden. So the beds are already in place. Yep, we're adding to it. So the 3 long rectangular beds are already in place. And then those additional 3 on the left side, the squares, yep, they're gonna go in this year.
Oh, okay. And I remember there was a color coding here. There was some.
Yeah, we, so just to make it easy to reference, I garden with my neighbor, which is part of the location. So it's accessible, you know, for me and then also for them. So, because, you know, we share things back and forth. In fact, we all do here in our little street. But so in referencing the gardens, the different raised garden beds, you know, we can say, oh, it's in the green garden or the blue garden or the white garden. So they're really just, they're old fiberglass panels that were used in water cooling towers. But they're like a dark gray color. And so I just went to the dollar store last year and got pool noodles and sliced them down lengthwise and then put the pool noodles over the top edges to show which color garden was which. So it just makes it easy in referencing the gardens, but they're truly just gray panels.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
Pool noodles. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it works.
Wow, that's a new one. I haven't even thought about doing that. That's great. I love that. Huh. I
So
want to keep out rabbits and slugs and things too.
yeah, well, with them being, and they're raised up like they're close to 3 feet. So they're not too low that we're squatting. And they're just wide enough that we can reach into the center from either side. So it's not an awkward bend. I know it can be difficult if you're, you know, on your low back, if you're bending too much, but they worked. I mean, they seem to be working. We add compost just to keep them nutritious and, you know, so far they're working.
Nice. Nice. Well, I like your plant list. I had to turn sideways to read it, but
yeah, sorry about that. It's the only way I could get the
oh,
iPad
it's good. And so are you ready to do your final design? You think you're getting there? You're there?
I did send in well, that's pretty much, that's what we're doing for this year. I did send in a 3rd picture.
Okay. I missed it. I'll look for it.
Okay, it's somebody else's raised garden beds. They're much prettier because they're beautiful wood and they've got, looks like some solar lights on them and they're really beautiful. And they have this great white big fence around them. The only thing that I would really add is more of these raised beds and then potentially a greenhouse. So everything else we have 2 sheds. I have all the tools that I need. The plants really are just, you know, all the herbs are in pots. And then it's just growing the foods that we all like to eat.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
I'm excited for you. It looks good. I like the fact that you're adding on to what you have and you have some, you know, you're not trying to do too much. It's great.
Nope, every year it's like, oh, we didn't grow this. What, should we try this? And so then we just add another bed.
Nice. And you probably have enough room here to add pots of things too, if you wanted to. 'Cause you've
Yeah.
got lots of space in here in these
Mhm.
in between areas, so you could put in some extra big, whiskey barrels, or even just a collection of big pots and things.
Yep. If you look down the right-hand side where the apple trees are,
Yeah.
there are a series of pots there, and that's where I do those kinds of things. I do have some old whiskey barrels.
Oh, good.
And I
Good.
have a lot of, you were talking earlier about, you can only collect so many plastic pots, but we reuse the heck out of them.
Oh, good.
And, we'll come up with something like, oh, let's just throw it in a pot, stick it in the garden, and,
Oh, good.
yeah, it grows, it works. And, it's a great way to get the soil healthy faster rather than trying. I did years ago have an in-ground garden. And,
Uh-huh.
when I first had our soil tested, the report came back from the county extension office and said that we have an unusual, even given the area that I am in, said that we have an unusually high amount of clay in our soil. So it just, was taking so long trying to get the soil nice by enriching the ground soil, which is why finally I just said it's going to be raised beds, because it was just so much easier to get it healthy faster.
Yeah. Great. Well,
So,
good. I'm going to keep moving along here because I'm not sure how many more I have.
Yep.
I think Catherine is the last one. I think I'm looking at the clock, and I always think I have more time than I do. Catherine, very nice job. Thank you so much, Susan. I
Yep.
appreciate
yeah, you're welcome.
Catherine, are you with us tonight? Okay, well, we're looking at her design. I think Catherine told me that this is her sort of dream garden. I think that they're not going to actually be putting this in, but I love the shapes that she's created here. I mean, she will be putting it in eventually, but I just think she's done a lovely, fun job of just thinking outside the box. And Catherine, good job if you're listening to this after the class. And she's measured everything, and it was a little harder, I guess, to kind of figure this out, since it's not a square shape, but it really looks nice. I know that she spent a lot of time, and then this is where the garden is going to go, in this area down here, and then the accessories and things. So, I just think you have all the pieces here that are ready to go. So it looks great. Looks nice. And also the plant list. Look at that plant list. Woo-wee. You're going to be busy, girl. That's a lot of things to plant, but I love your vision. It's wonderful. All right. So everybody, I'm going to start wrapping it up with just a very quick review, because I hate to say goodbye, but we've seen a lot, we've learned a lot, we've talked a lot, and I don't know about you, but I'm so ready to get going in my garden. But the step number one when we first started talking was design, keeping something beautiful in your mind. And I showed you this big picture of this garden that inspired me. And you've all found your own pictures of places that inspire you. And, a lot of these elements we continue to see over and over again in all of our favorite gardens. There's not a lot of rewilding going on in this garden for sure, but there sure is a heck of a lot of design elements that are really wonderful. And we talked a lot about the 4 square, or we talked at least a little bit about it, rotating the crops, the organic rotation crops with the legumes and the roots and the fruits and flowers and the leafy greens, and trying to remember to move things around if you can. If you can't, that's fine too. But that's a good way to keep building the soil and to keep the pests out of the soil. This is an illustration from my first book, The Complete Kitchen Garden. And in this design, I have the 4 square, but I've also integrated it with little flower beds here to bring the pollinators in as well. I've told you over and over to turn work into play. Don't ever say, I'm going out to work in the garden. You're supposed to say, I'm going out to play in the garden, and really have fun, and just keep building on ideas. Go out and visit as many gardens as you can. That's where you're going to get your best inspiration. Your own garden will take up a lot of time, but do try and take at least one weekend a month to go off and visit some beautiful gardens. And if you get a chance, go to Europe and see gorgeous English gardens and French gardens and Italian gardens. And I love putting things in the garden that make you smile. This is my friend Jan, and I often think when I look at this picture, there's a fine line between art and junk. She had a little too much in her garden, but who am I to say, if it makes her happy, just put it in your garden. And just remembering these other little small things that really make a garden, adding a table for eating al fresco, and adding a focal point such as this for height, or for height and drama with the bamboo trellises, and then that transition from the lawn into the garden, making sure you have a nice garden gate. And finding that sweet spot to put your garden bench, and remembering to sit down every now and then and just close your eyes and smell and open up all of your senses, smell deeply and listen to the sounds, and feel the texture of the grass under your feet. And there's just so much going on in our gardens all the time, and we just have to remember sometimes just to sit down and really connect. And seeds and plants, just keep experimenting and finding new things. That 80-20 rule of finding some things that you have that are tried and true, and then something new and different. And you can always have another garden year, and that's what I think keeps us going, is that we might not have had a successful year last year, but we can always try something new for next year. And it amazes me when I go back and look at pictures of my gardens, and many of which I've shown you, that some years there really isn't that much going on, and other years just things go whoop, and it really just depends on the weather so much as much as the good soil. It really just depends if we've had a lot of rain. So just remember that the more species of plants that we plant, the more insects and other animals we entice into our yard. So try something new and different. These are all salad greens. This is sort of a photograph I was taking of a garden, but I just love finding unusual things and putting them in containers and bringing them indoors. Who needs flowers when you have plenty of beautiful salad greens? Heirloom tomatoes, grow as many as you can, and just remember to take all of your guests down to the garden and cheer on those tomatoes. A good gardener, I always say, a good gardener makes gardening look effortless, because it just looks like everything's just growing naturally, and you haven't put all that much time and thought into it. But we all know that a good garden it really does take a lot of time and planning, and really thinking about these things. And it's a year-round affair. That's why you're taking this garden class now in February or January and February. It's really something that you're going to be thinking about all year round, and it's not just in July and August and September when your guests are going oohing and awing over all of your beautiful produce, because you've really put a lot of effort into it. So pat yourself on the back and make sure you share it with your friends. And speaking of sharing, just remember to share what you love with others. I think that's the most important thing about being a gardener. We do it for ourselves because we love it, but we're really here to inspire others as well. So share what you love with others, and remember to play with your food in the kitchen and in the garden. And there are only two things in life that money can't buy: true love and homegrown heirloom tomatoes. So I just want to say thank you so much for hanging in here with me. And I'm sad that this is our last class, but I like thinking of you continuing on and having a great summer ahead.
Well, thank you. You have been
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen. This
wonderful.
is a wonderful class.
Thank
It
you
was a
so
great
much.
class.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Loved
I
it.
do
did.
hope we
Oh.
get together.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you, all of you.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you. It was
Is there a
nice
chance to get the contact of everybody, or do we already have that and I just don't know?
I don't know, Tim's in charge of the now all questions can be directed at Tim.
Ellen, can I ask you a
That's
quick
right.
question?
Yes.
Did you have any comments for me?
Oh, that's right. We want to look at your picture. Hold on.
Well, that's okay, but I thought you'd have to close.
No, I'd love to look at that. I just have to scroll all the way back through.
Oh, seriously? Oh, wow.
Well, Ellen, while you're doing that,
Yes.
in terms of exchanging emails, what I would say is, we don't have that contact information, but I would say probably the best way to do that is if you use the discussion board on the class website, because you'll continue to have access to that. If you're interested in exchanging emails, I could either one of you could start a discussion thread there, or I could ask Vanessa to start a thread for people to exchange their contact information if they'd like to.
Oh, yeah.
And that way
You got it, Ellen. It's go up 3. Oh, number 8. I know it's not very,
This one
no.
is yours.
That's the first one, yes.
Okay. I have 3 of yours.
I know, one was,
All right, here we go, slideshow. All right. So I have 3 of yours, Kathy.
yeah, that's the plane.
This
And
is
then
Kathy. So Kathy's from the other class, and so she missed the discussion. This was your original design here. Right? And I like the way you put these garden tools in. We've talked about this. That's the Hari Hari, right? That everybody loves so much.
Yeah. That's my favorite tool.
Yeah. And then I love the way you put these in, because these were your 3 different designs that you came up with, right? And
Yeah.
I like being able to see them side by side and just thinking about things, you can sort of see that it's sort of like an archaeological dig. You can see this is the class where we talked about the elements of style. And then you came up with this, which is so simple and so stylish.
Well, this is the one that I'm designing for my daughter's property. And
Right.
we've already talked to them about it, and I love the idea of having a place to eat, bring everyone down, because they have a large house. Well, the house isn't so large, but the property is 3 acres. And then when they have a lot of people over, this would be a lovely place. You could eat, you can enjoy the garden, and you can swim, because they have a beautiful pool.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
it takes a lot longer. I'm starting the other class called what's it called? Graphic communication.
At Longwood?
Longwood? Yes. And he was talking about how to do your lines so you don't get a little smudge when you draw one line to the next line. And I said, well, I'll fill this. That's really hard to do,
Yeah.
like anyhow, but
Yeah. Well, this is fun. I can't wait to see you fill it all in. I love how you've created this shape, which is so it's such a combination of your other 3. It's like it really brings that idea up, like try one that's ordinary, one that's extraordinary, and then you're going to find that perfect in between.
well, what's kind of nice was that I realized the more you do it, because then I realized I should have my fence. There'll be another part that goes all the way around, and that could be all flowers or whatever I want. And then beyond that, I could have more flowers, like more, maybe I have a lot of dahlias. And
nice.
so you got a double row by not stopping right at the walk.
Right there. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's good that you've also created space, and we haven't really talked about this, but you have a fence here, but you have space in between the fence and the garden bed, which is very important, rather than having it butt right up against there.
Yeah. So then I could put low things in there or whatever I want, like as you progress, because you can.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, the question was, I had this set up so it's 3. The main entrances are about 6 feet to get in, then the shed is back there, and it will go beyond the garden.
Yeah.
But is this too big, you think, for it looks like to be like 3, I guess about almost 30 by
This is the gate. This is the gate here.
there's actually 3 gates to get in.
There's
That-
1,
that's-
2,
and then one over there to the right.
and then
and
is this a
then-
gate 2?
And then the shed's right behind there, so it's double doors to get. It's got an entrance into the shed there, and then another entrance between the two windows.
Uh-huh.
So we're thinking you could probably put in almost like a kitchen garden. I mean, like in your shed, you could put, if you like,
Oh, there, the
run
window there,
power
right,
or something.
right. I think you can't have too many entrances. I mean, got the compost on one side and you got this and
Yeah.
that, and if they're not taking up space, but I think I like the way you've lined it up here so that you have this focal point here. So,
And then the focal point goes right down towards the next point, which straight ahead. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
So that would be either a decorative point or a large pot with something in it, or something interesting, because you want to have that whole vision that leads you right down through your garden.
exactly. So
Okay,
I'm gonna stop sharing because
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
getting
I
out of
know.
time here, but I have to say you've really done a great job of incorporating all of those things that we talked about in this class. You've done an excellent job. It's lovely.
Oh, thank you. Better than the little dotted lines. It's
Yeah,
gonna
but
go somewhere.
don't you feel like you've come a long way? I mean,
100%. Well, I haven't gardened for 30, I flower gardened forever, but it's been 30 years since I had a vegetable garden. And the
Wow.
last one I had, it was when I went into labor, I said to my husband, you gotta weed the garden. He went through the rows with the lawnmower to weed in between the rows of my beds. And my neighbor, who had a perfect garden, looked over and said, what are you doing? And you could hear stones go ding, 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 and that's what he did to maintain the garden. So but anyhow.
Well,
was
I'm sure you've
well.
forgiven him over all these years.
Thank you very much. Thank you. for
Now we
feedback.
have some chat things. I think we have some chat. So before we close out, we probably should just check the chat to see if there's anything in here we need to see. Thank you so much for writing in the chat. Two great seed companies, True Love Seed and Happy Cat Farm. Oh, I don't know that. Oh, and Julie, you put your design in. Oh,
It's okay, no worries.
oh, I'm so sorry. I want to see it. Oops, it's downloading, but it's going to take a while.
It's
It's 8:30, everybody, but really nice to read all these chats. I'll read them after you're gone, but great to have all of you in class. Thank you for showing
Bye-bye.
up every week. It was really nice, really
Yeah.
nice. It got me through this.
I like this group too. I had a double. Yes.
Stay
Thank
in
you.
touch. Send me an email. Send me photos.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Come to Vermont. If you come
Thank
to
you.
Vermont, stop by and see me. That'd be great.
Thanks,
Good.
Ellen.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks now.